Yo, it's your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics. Back at you with a new video. Today is Thursday, October 23rd, 2025, with your boy Ryan and the Northwest Sports Fanatics. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Smash that like button either now or on your way out. Donate to your boy if you can. Cash App $ORIONNWSF or the YouTube Super Chat right here. We got the Minnesota Vikings versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Thursday night football on Prime. Kickoff is going to be here in just a couple minutes. So let's cue up the music, take a look at the thumb, and let's get settled in for some Thursday night football. Happy Thursday, everyone. On the left, receivers in the game, Jay Jetta, Justin Jefferson, having a little bit of a slow start in 2025. Obviously, it's a quarterback carousel. JJ McCarthy is still out. Carson Wentz is in. We'll see if Jetta can hit the end zone here today. And on the right, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, top 10 QB, Justin Herbert. And kickoff is going to be here in just a few minutes. Drew in the building. What's good? And again, obviously, we know the World Series is starting tomorrow, and more than likely, I'll be doing every single game in the World Series. And then obviously we'll keep tabs on everything that's going on in college football and the NFL. And then once the World Series is over, we'll probably transition from there, to more NFL, more college football, and possibly some, NBA and NHL. So for some filler streams, but again, not really the way that, we wanted the Mariners season to end. Definitely disappointing, 3 outs away from making it. But again, we went a lot further than most people were anticipating. And there's a little bit of a hangover effect, I think, for most Mariner fans and whatnot. But again, I'm still excited to see what happens between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Very excited for the Mariners going into next season. And I'm definitely excited to be able to see what happens the rest of the NFL and the college football season as well. Marine Bean in the building. What's good? And we're just about to kick off. Here we go. And Price out of the end zone, getting a block on the edge, the 30, the 40. And a great return there for the Minnesota Vikings right out of the gates. We got a flag on the play. And I assume that will be a hold and it'll be coming back. Let's find out. Holding. 10-yard penalty. And we're going to start off going a little bit backwards there after the decent return. Global broadcast here on Prime Video. We'll see what Carson Wentz can do here, starting off with this matchup. All right, let's see what Carson Wentz can do. Obviously, not the most ideal option, after going with Sam Darnold, last season. But we'll see. Shotgun set, little check down, screen pass, incomplete. And Aaron Jones is making his first game back to Minnesota in a few weeks after an injury. So we will see if Aaron Jones will be a factor here today. Reflect in the building. What's good? Hope you're doing well. I know, I assume you and Marine Bean and a lot of the other Mariner fans are still on a little bit of a hangover. I got a chance to take Paisley and got her body washed and nail trimmed at the location that I typically go. So I've been able to spend the last couple days with her, but I'm ready to get back into some baseball as well as more NFL and college football as well. Handoff up the middle, and the Chargers wearing their Supercharger throwback unis, which I'm really loving here today. And Perryman and company with a nice tackle. Ronald in the building. What's good? Yeah, and it also shows you that, greatness sometimes fucks up and messes up. Because, again, we assumed that Bizzardo would be great, and he was our best, guy in the pen. for a good chunk of the year, and one bad pitch, ended the season, and really unfortunate, but I love the Mariners just like as much as you guys do too as well, and definitely look forward to next season and many years to come. 3rd down and 10. Wentz gets pummeled, and Jetta goes up and gets it. Wow. 1st down, Vikings. Move the chains. Tyler in the building. What's good? Especially when you end up coming that close, and whatnot. But a big pass there. Carson Wentz to Jay Jetta, 16 yards. Ronald starting us off. $1 holla. Every dollar counts. I appreciate that. $1 holla on the Dono train. 99 to go. And we will be doing the World Series. So I will be doing every game of that. And then once, obviously, that is completely done with baseball, then we'll transition full-time in the NFL, college football, and then maybe a little NBA and a little NHL. We'll see kind of where that goes, depending on what the main event for that particular day is. And we got, a 4-month countdown until we can get back to spring training. So 2-yard run there from Jordan Mason for 2 yards. 2nd down and 8 at the Minnesota 34. And obviously the Chargers, started off hot, 3-0. But since Joe Alt went down, the running game and the passing game has not really been up to par for Justin Herbert. And Minnesota is the #1 blitzing team in the NFL. So we'll see what happens on the other side of the ball once Herbert gets a chance. But right now, Wentz is trying to be able to do his best with this core group of Mason, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson and company, and we will see what we get. Addison with the short catch there. Reflect with it to her. Appreciate you. We're at 3. 97 to go to hit the goal. Third down and 1 after Wentz went to Addison for 7 yards on the Minnesota 41. Let's see what they do here, if there's any trickery. And they go for a play action bootleg. And under pressure, Wentz just throws up a 500 ball and luckily gets it out of bounds as he gets pummeled. Derwin James was chasing him and on hot pursuit. And that's going to turn into 4th down and 1. Yeah, definitely a good comparison there with Wentz and Jameis. Like, yeah, they are going to throw picks and they might fumble, and again, they're a little wild and chaotic. But again, you are going to get some, plays, from a guy like that. And that's a very good comparison, for a guy that typically is a backup. Will get you some points, but will also make some mistakes as well, just like Jameis Winston. And obviously backed up here on the 41, you would assume that they would punt the football. No Detroit Lion, Dan Campbell nonsense going for it. And that is fair caught. And we will see Justin Herbert in this offense and see how it goes. Andre in the building, how are you? And it definitely felt weird, having 2 days off, waiting for this Thursday night football event. Obviously, I watched the Kraken on Tuesday, and then obviously the Blazers yesterday. They played great for 3 quarters, and they fumbled the bag in the 4th. Anthony Edwards ended up making the game-winning jumper. And then I wake up this morning finding out that Chauncey Billups is affiliated with the Mafia, and him and a few other NBA players, former and current, are obviously going to be going to court, possibly going to jail, and obviously not really good. If you are a Rip City fan, I mean, they already have, plenty of distractions as it is, just being kind of a young team and not being able to have Dame available. So again, you're going to go with the good, the bad, and the ugly if you're a fan of teams in the Pacific Northwest. Sometimes it's going to be great. Other times you're going to wake up to some nonsense in the morning. And again, I think a lot of the fan base was already kind of, iffy about Billups, but again, it shows you how bad gambling really is. And again, they may have it legal in a few states here and there, but it shows you, how sports, may not be what you think. especially if players and referees and the mob and the mafia and people are in it based off point spread and any type of way, that they can end up getting a win. Now, obviously with Billups, it was a little bit different than some of the other individuals, with obviously running like poker games, back at, certain locations, and, they have card readers and, special contacts that can see mark cards and, just a whole big elaborate scheme. So again, we will see how that kind of progresses, for the NBA. It's definitely not a good look, as well as the Blazers as well. And, the Blazers and Kraken were definitely not on the same level as, like, for example, the Hawks or the Mariners. But again, I am wishing both teams a success, and we will see how that all plays out as we move forward into 2025. In this particular matchup, I don't really necessarily have favoritism for one or the other, but if I had to choose one team that I would be going for, I guess I would be going for the Chargers, because Herbert, went to Oregon. Obviously, I know Joe Alt is a big piece, and when he ended up being injured, the offense hasn't been the same. They started off 3-0 and they've dropped like 4. So again, it shows you how important an offensive line it truly is, and especially a special player like Joe Alt. So, again, O-line, D-line, defense, coaching, play calling, that's what matters, not necessarily quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Those are important, but not as important as O-line and D-line, and we'll see where this goes. Handoff up the middle, and the Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 blitzing team in 2025. So again, if they have a weak O-line, Herbert's going to be running for his life. They've had a couple running backs for the Chargers go down with injuries, Najee Harris and Omari and Hampton. So again, this is not really what Herbert was expecting at this point of the season after starting off like 3-0, and now being 3-4 or 4-3, excuse me. But again, we will, we'll find out if the Chargers can find enough offense, to be able to combat this nasty blitzing defense with those throwback unis that they're wearing, the supercharger unis from back in the day. They definitely remind me of, Junior Seau and back in that era. Herbert off that blitz, intercepted and picked up at the 10, the 5, touchdown Vikings. And it shows you if you blitz, again, big plays will happen. And Rodgers in the end zone, touchdown Minnesota. And again, I had a couple Charger buddies, and I told them, watch out for the blitz. They are the number 1 blitzing team in the NFL. And obviously Harbaugh is looking up, hoping that ball hit the ground. And again, Minnesota will bring corner blitzes. They'll bring blitzes right up the middle. And again, that pressure, got right into Herbert. Throw, not really on target. Rodgers, right place, right time, gets up, no one near him. And let's see if he gets touched by anybody. I mean, obviously the Vlad McConkey is about 3 yards away. Ooh, that definitely looks like the ball slightly hit the ground there. And it looked like the tip of the football hit a little bit of the ground. He did have his hands underneath it, so we will see if they will call this, a touchdown or if it will be incomplete. Andrea, yeah, I mean, I think for every one of us, Mariner fans, I mean, it was soul crushing. 3 outs away. The guy that we trust the most had one bad pitch, and then they end up hitting the 3-run bomb, and then we lose 4-3. It's, it almost feels like criminally unfair, but, that's sports and that's life, and again, you got to crawl before you walk. You got to lose before you win. And I know eventually we are going to make a World Series. And now in the offseason, priority is signing Josh Naylor, possibly Polanco, letting guys like Mitch Garver walk, and just trying to get the team, a little bit better in the bullpen and a little bit better, in the 1 through the 9. And again, very disappointed. And I know a lot of us were a little sad and a little emotional and whatnot. But again, we went a lot farther than a lot of people maybe originally thought, including myself. And, again, we can only go up from here. And definitely excited about the future of the Seattle Mariners. Incomplete pass, and Reflect called it. If you get a little bit of that football on the ground and you see any type of little movement, they are calling that pretty close. And it all really depends on how they call it on the field. Even though it was called touchdown, there was enough visual evidence to overturn that, and I think that was the right call. Judah in the building, what's good? Touchdown overturned off the booth review, and now we got 3rd down and 13, and Herbert has to realize he's going to have to run. You know, doing bootleg, play action, you're going to be running for your life. This is the #1 blitzing team in the NFL. So again, you're going to have to dink and doink with the running backs. You're not going to be able to do long developing, post routes and, wide receiver routes. You got to get the ball to Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey ASAP. You're not going to have a lot of time. And also keep your eyes downfield. 1st down, Chargers. Keenan Allen, move the chains. But you're going to have to run the football as well. If the Chargers are going to win this game, Herbert has to use his legs, and he'll probably have to run for like 50 yards, maybe more. And if he can run for, 30 to 70 yards with his legs, that might be the difference between getting those key 1st downs or possibly touchdowns with his legs. Because, again, they're going to be bringing blitz packages from the middle, from the corner, and anywhere that you could possibly think. Nice 1st down and nice job by Herbert keeping his eyes downfield when he could have tucked it and run and gained 5. Decides to keep his eyes downfield and get 17. And then a little handoff up the middle, short gain. And again, there's going to be a lot more, information that'll come out, obviously from, the FBI and everyone else that was included with that mafia investigation with, current coaches, players, and former players. And not a good look, whatsoever. Second down and 11 at the Charger 30. Shotgun set, 4 wide receiver set. Bring pressure up the middle, throw to the sideline. There we go. Rondé Gadsden with the catch. And I'm liking these Supercharger old school unis. Gives me the Junior Seau vibes. Yeah. If there's a lot of money to be made, then yeah, especially with everything with Ohtani. Absolutely. You hit it right on the head. 3rd down and 2 at the Charger 39. When there's money to be made, the exceptions will be made. This is a sad reality that we live in, but that's how it goes. Nice effort there. 1st down, Chargers. They go with the fake, obviously with the sweep. And anytime you see a man in motion with the jet sweep and then they end up going with the delayed handoff and then you end up getting that big 1st down. Now it feels like the Chargers realize what they are going to have to deal with. With no Joe Alt, the offensive line has been, kind of beat up, and again, they started off the season pretty strong, 2-0, 3-0, now 4-3. Vikings are 3-3. It's a very even matchup. But again, one side has got a little bit better of a defense than the other. Screen pass, blockers downfield, and you got 2, 3, 4 Vikings there that put him down. Short gain. Herbert to Ladd McConkey, one of his favorite targets for 4 yards. Harrison Smith with the tackle. And Mekhi Becton Sr., 30 starts at tackle, 22 at guard on the sideline. Another injury for the offensive line. And that's kind of the Chargers' MO. Injuries every year, even though they have talent. And a throw over the middle. 1st down, Chargers. Let's go, Herbert. Again, Herbert's, internal clock has got to be a lot quicker. Normally when you go against blitzing defenses, you're going to have, 3 seconds. You're going to be able to go 1st progression, 2nd progression, 3rd progression, and be able to look around. But, with this #1, ranked blitzing defense in 2025 in the Minnesota Vikings, you're going to have like a second and a half. You got to make a quick read. You probably won't even be able to get to your 2nd or 3rd progression because they're going to be right there. Handoff up the middle. And a little short gain after Gadsden with that nice 13-yard reception. 2nd down and long. Yeah, supposedly they already made all the money back, based off endorsements and everything else. So $700 million, for the salary, and they already made that in year one. So 6-yard run there for Vidal. Pace with the tackle, 2nd down and 4, handoff up the middle. And rumbling and a bumbling, trying to get to that 1st down marker a couple yards short. And again, when it's tough, when you're already sitting on your 3rd and 4th and 5th string running backs that are going to be a part of Herbert's offense. But again, we will see where it goes. Alt is out there now, which is great to see. And again, missed 3 games with the ankle sprain, and they haven't been the same since he's been gone, but he's not 100%. So we'll have to keep an eye on Joe Alt, and hopefully he'll be able to give them that extra oomph on that line that they need. But a lot of Ladd McConkey, a lot of Keenan Allen, and a lot of Gadsden. Herbert under center, play action fake, blitz off the edge, and they're right in the middle, and that's where they're going to attack. 1st down, Ladd McConkey, move the chains. But there's a flag on the play. That might be a hold on the O-line there. But the middle of the field is where you're going to be able to find those gaps, in that soft zone. And let's see what the flag is here. Ooh, roughing the passer. Wow. That overly aggressive Viking defense. And you can't hit Herbert late. I mean, that's kind of it was a couple seconds after he threw the ball, and it was a little tap, from the helmet to the helmet. I mean, is that worth the penalty? I mean, he kind of launched himself, but as far as like the physicality part, not really, but just launching and actually getting contact a couple seconds after he threw it, they're going to have to call that. 1st down and goal at the Minnesota 8, unexcusable penalty there. And we will be doing the World Series games starting tomorrow. I'll be doing all of them. So I don't know if that'll be just 4, but for the Dodgers, or if it'll be 5, and the Dodgers will win in 5. I'm not really sure if there's any situation I see the Blue Jays winning. I can only really see them winning 2 games at most. So Dodgers in 6 would be the longest I could see it going, but you never know. Sports is a wild thing, and you never know, how the Blue Jays are going to play, especially if they end up winning the first 2 games at home. Then obviously the series could go 6 or 7 if they do that. But the big question is, will they do that? We'll find out tomorrow when we do the live stream. Loss of 2 yards there for Vidal, and Grenard there with the tackle. 2nd and goal in the Minnesota 10. Play action fake, bootleg. Herbert avoiding a sack lunch, and another look at the athleticism, but gets caught from behind. Minnesota's defensive players are extremely fast, sideline to sideline. Herbert trying to make something out of nothing. And again, gained at least a few positive yards there. Two-yard run from Herbert, what could have been a loss of 5. 3rd down and goal at the Minnesota 8. Look for Ladd McConkey or Keenan Allen. Herbert, 3rd and goal, wide open. Touchdown, Gadsden. Wow. There you go. And that's a big tutty for Justin Herbert. And again, those are going to be the 3 options that they're going to be going to the most. Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey. And there's a flag on the play. Let's see what they call here. Gadsden, let's see what they call. But Gadsden lined up in the slot right there, so it's going to be one-on-one with a linebacker. Perfect throw by Herbert. Well, a little bit behind the tight end there, but good protection by Joe Alt, preventing the big sack lunch on Herbert. Oh, yeah, taunting penalty after he scored for Gadsden. It's always cool to be able to see the father-son, keep it in the family type of relationships, when you can, have, individuals that may have played in the past and whatnot. Nice job by Gadsden there. Both teams with some self-inflicting wounds, a little extra trash talking there after the tutty, by Gadsden. And obviously some late hits on Herbert that are a little unexcusable. And again, you have to be aggressive, but you have to be able to know when to tone it back. And obviously we know the NFL is a man's game, and people are going to obviously, kind of push the boundaries at some point or another. But good drive there for the Chargers after the pick six that ended up being reviewed, ended up hitting the ground and going all the way down the field and marching for a touchdown. Let's see if the extra point will be good here for the Chargers. Extra point is up. Wow, it looked like he missed it. They say it went in, but, a lot of times when you watch these kicks, on TV, and they get really, really close to that high end of that bar, and they start fading left or fading right, I mean, that didn't look like it went into me. That looked like he missed it, but supposedly that was good, so. 7-0 Chargers. I mean, really the options that we have, are doing the World Series or, we end up doing World Series, game one, because there's nothing else really going on. And then obviously on Saturday, I could do, the Ducks in Wisconsin. So that's always another option. It's around the same time as the World Series. And then we could always do, Sunday night football with the Steelers matchup there, go that particular route. Was it Steelers, Packers? And then Monday night, what is it? Commanders and Chiefs. So we have options. We don't necessarily have to do, every single game. I'm gonna kind of just play it by ear. After we do World Series game one, I'm gonna see like what we're getting, based off views and likes and subs and donos, and depending on how tomorrow goes, that'll probably determine if I do, that, moving forward for the whole World Series, or if we end up just doing a couple games of the World Series and then we do NFL or college football instead. So, but those will be the options that we have, doing some Sunday night football, Monday night football, and doing, possibly Ducks on Saturday, or we'll end up just doing the World Series, game one, game two, game three, game four, and then doing football after that's completed. But those are the options. 7-0 Chargers. All right, let's see what Carson Wentz can do here on this next drive and reflect at a good comparison. Definitely like a Jameis Winston type. You already kind of know what J.J. McCarthy is about. More of a pocket guy, a guy that's a little bit of injury prone. But again, we don't really know fully what we're going to get out of J.J. McCarthy. When obviously he was on Michigan, it was pretty much run the football, play good defense, and they didn't really have him throw that much. So, for the Vikings to pick a player like that, is kind of a head scratcher. You would think like a Jackson Dart type of player would be much better fit, for Minnesota with the weapons they have with Addison and Jetta. But, again, coulda, woulda, shoulda. And for whatever reason, they wanted to have, the hometown kid kind of close to home. But I know if I was Minnesota, I wouldn't want J.J. McCarthy, and again, they're probably wishing they had Sam Darnold right now as well. So. Yeah, but again, anyone that's a Dodger fan, regardless if you're a longtime fan like my dad or bandwagon, or anything in between, it's like, they get there all the time, and again, it's great if you're a fan of that team, because then you can enjoy all these Hall of Famers, Ohtani and Mookie and Freddie, and then you got really good players like Teoscar and Kike steps up. But for everyone else, it's like, you kind of want to see someone else, in that spot, and I think that, it is what it is. Again, it would have been a lot more exciting if it was Mariners and Dodgers, for a lot of us. But, hopefully we'll be able to make the World Series next year or the year after that. We're getting closer. We just got to lock up Naylor, hopefully bring Polo back, let Garver walk, and wait for the development of some of our young guys, get Colt Emerson, on the team, and we'll kind of go from there. 5-yard penalty there for illegal formation. And Mason gets drilled and drilled again. Feisty Charger defense there. Yeah, I don't quit. I mean, again, I'm going to be working almost every day. There just really wasn't anything to do on, Tuesday and Wednesday. I could have done a Kraken matchup or the Blazer game last night, but I figured I would just, spend time with Paisley and, kind of reflect on the season, that we had with the Mariners. And, and then we'll do, Thursday night football. And then obviously we have the option of the World Series or NFL college football games. And then obviously filler streams might be some NBA or NHL, depending on where we go. And we got a 4-month countdown until we get into spring training. 2nd down and 11 on the Minnesota 17. Wentz looking, gets out to the sack lunch. I don't know how. Spin move, looking downfield, and incomplete. I don't know how the hell Wentz didn't go down there. Intended receiver was Jordan Addison. Zach in the building. What's good? Yeah, I mean, we were 3 outs away from making it. If Bizzardo pitches like he normally does, we're in the World Series. There's no doubt about it. We're there. We won 3-1. That's what would have happened normally. But one bad pitch, Springer got a hold of it. You would think that Springer or Vladdy would be the guy that would do the damage to us. And, it's just really fucking unfortunate. But again, I'm proud of the team and I'm looking forward to next year. And it's 12 noon. You know what time it is? A Charger sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. And that was a big one there. And that is going to be 4th down. And Minnesota is going to have to punt. And we already know Minnesota's got the number 1 blitzing defense. But the Chargers, they're going to bring the heat on Wentz as well. If you don't give Wentz enough time to go to Jetta, Aaron Jones, or Jordan Addison, then obviously you're going to have plays like this. The offensive line breaks down, and then you get 2 Chargers bolting up and getting right in his grill. And just like that, we're going to have a punt. Kraken look like they're pretty good at home, but they haven't really figured out how to win on the road. Their team looks more competitive this year than last year, based on the games that I've watched. And obviously the Blazers looked pretty good yesterday, in the first 3 quarters, defensive first, which is nice to see. But again, Anthony Edwards, he's one of the best players in the NBA, hit a jumper late. And, in the last 5 minutes, it was owned by the T-Wolves. But, I think the Kraken and the Blazers will be pretty good. But obviously with the whole scandal with Chauncey Billups and the mafia and the gambling and everything else, obviously another black eye for that organization, which is not ideal. 1st down and 10 at the Charger 41 as it was down by Felton, and we're on a commercial break. Yeah, they had Colt on the taxi. Yeah. And again, I want to be able to see, more of the young guys develop. And again, Cade Anderson, want to be able to see what, he's about as well. Hopefully he'll be able to get called up sooner than later. And, again, we're going in the right direction. ALCS game 7, we were 3 outs away. So, again, we have to be able to bond together and go through the pain together. And, again, there'll be other things that, we'll be doing, obviously NFL, college football, NBA, NHL, maybe even a little bit of NASCAR, around, February, March, as we're waiting for baseball to come back. And then once obviously the Mariners have some games that will be televised, even if it, ends up being in spring training, I usually will do like 1 or 2 games, right before the season starts and whatnot. And then obviously we'll be, doing Mariners every day for about 6 months straight. So definitely looking forward to that. But, again, I do enjoy, the NFL and the college football scene and, the NHL and the NBA. For me, it's not as exciting, as like the NFL, college football, or baseball, but I still appreciate it. And it's, gives you something to look forward to as we're waiting for the Mariners to come back. So Yeah, it's something to do with YouTube. You can go to your settings and then you can, change obviously your it's something that YouTube with like an update, it, went from everyone's regular handle to like whatever you had, based off your settings. And sometimes people had the same and others had something old. So again, if you go to your settings, you should be able to modify it back to your, old, handle if you're looking to do that. So Herbert, play action fake on 1st and 10. Good protection up front, but there's a flag on the play and pass dropped. Ladd McConkey with a rare drop, and that might be a hold on the offensive line. I was going to say, I don't think I've seen Herbert have that much time. It's got to be a hold. Wow, offsides on the defense. You got to be kidding me. Wow, 1st down. Chargers. And that's a grab that McConkey always gets, and it hit him in the face mask. I mean, if we're talking about accuracy, Herbert's got it right there in the front of the face mask, and Ladd McConkey's like, what the hell did just happen there? Am I back in Georgia? 1st down and 5. Herbert hands off, and pretty good blocking up front there, a couple yards away from the 1st down marker. No worries. We've had a couple other individuals that have been like, what the hell happened? My handle is different, what happened and whatnot. So, and again, YouTube did that, a few weeks back. So, and Patterson up the middle for 4 yards. Allen and Wilson with that tackle, and handoff up the middle. 1st down, Chargers. Move the chains. Mekhi Becton with the knee injury, and just when you get Joe Alt back, now you have another injury with another important piece on that line with Mekhi Becton. It just like it never ends. It's like a rotating door. After one guy comes back, another injury, and I don't know if I've seen a team more cursed with injuries in the NFL than the Los Angeles Chargers. Even when they were the San Diego Chargers, same thing. Play action fake, Herbert, little check down, Gadsden, and a little short gain there. Great to see Joe Alt back out there. And a 7-yard pass to Gadsden. Smith with the tackle. 2nd down and 3 at the Minnesota 37. Global broadcast here on Prime. Herbert, handoff up the middle, and slashing for a 1st down. 1st down, Chargers. Vidal, move the chains. Yeah, Niners are typically injured as well, but the difference between the Niners and the Chargers most of the time is going to be coaching, and play calling, and having that discipline. And again, it's like you can have a rotating door of guys. With them, it's more offensive guys getting hurt, and then a couple of defensive guys this year that are pretty big that have gone down. But again, the Niners can pretty much plug and play almost anybody at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And they've proven that even with injuries that they can still be relevant. That shows you how good of a head coach and a play caller Kyle Shanahan is. And on top of that, they got Robert Saleh back, from the Jets. So now he's the defensive coordinator again. So even though like Fred Warner went down, again, it's a big loss, but again, with a guy like Saleh, back, running the defensive schemes, they're still going to be, kind of floating around. And obviously we know it's going to be a 3-team race between the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Niners. And again, the Niners have injuries, but most of the time they're able to, kind of fight back and not really let it affect them. With the Chargers, it seems like they do a pretty good job of the injuries during the regular season, but when it comes to like, okay, towards the end of the year, or if they're going to be in the playoffs, it ends up just being too much. And then they get exploited for their weaknesses, based on the better team in the AFC that plays them, and then they end up losing, and again, it would be nice to be able to see Herbert, have, the right success. I feel like they got, a good coach with Harbaugh there, but again, if you're always losing offensive linemen and running backs and tight ends and D linemen and linebackers and secondary, and it just keeps on, happening, it's kind of a hard thing to be able to, battle from when you kind of have a reputation of being like the most injured team or the most cursed team in the NFL. But with that being said, end of the first quarter, 7-0 Chargers. They're in the building. What's good? And I won't lie, yeah, I'm going to do it. A piece of me is still a little, sad, and a little piece of me is a little torn, and whatnot, since we didn't make it. But I'm going to do the World Series game 1 tomorrow, and then we'll see what we get for an audience, what the likes and the subs and the views and the donos are. And depending on what we get tomorrow, that'll determine if I do the rest of the games or if I just kind of do a game here, a game there, and do like maybe a couple games of the World Series instead of every one. I still got Oregon versus Wisconsin on the weekend that I could do, as well as Sunday Night Football with Packers, Steelers. And then you got Commanders and Chiefs on Monday night that we could also do. Nice run by Herbert. First down, Chargers. No Jaden Daniels, though. So obviously the Chiefs have a huge advantage against the Commanders. I mean, even if Daniels played, you would assume the Chiefs will be kind of tough to beat. But not to say that Marcus Mariota won't be, making some plays. But obviously the Chiefs at this point are playing better football than the Commanders. They're not having the same type of year that they had last year. So. Nice 18-yard run there by Herbert. Handoff. And the Chargers are hungry to try to get this to 14-0, and you can feel it. Vidal. And again, the Chargers are already on their third, fourth, fifth string running backs that are in that running back room. Obviously, Najee Harris, obviously with the injury early in the year, out. Omarion Hampton out, but he'll be back, later in the season. And again, this type of squad, he wants to have it kind of similar to the Niners where you run and play good defense with Harbaugh. But again, he just doesn't have the same kind of personnel that he did on the Niners back in the day or even on Michigan while he was there. Herbert, play action fake, little bootleg. Herbert looking, use those legs. There we go. But one thing that Harbaugh does have, he's got the best quarterback that he's ever been able to coach, over the Niners and Michigan and now here. You got a guy that is a top 10 quarterback, a guy that sometimes, makes the big plays and other times makes mistakes, just like any other top 10 quarterback. But again, it definitely gives you, something a little bit extra to work with a guy like Herbert. Megan in the building. What's good? First and goal, man in motion. Herbert, handoff up the middle, following his blockers, breaking a tackle. Touchdown, Chargers. Wow. And just like that, Kimani Vidal with a tutty, 13-0 Chargers. Yeah, I don't think you could even have dreamed of a better situation than what you're having. I mean, this is the best season you've had since you've had like Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning. So again, any Colts fan obviously is living their best life. That's for damn sure. And you really haven't had too many major injuries either, knock on wood. So hopefully that'll, stay the same. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you progress as the year goes on. And if you make the playoffs, they could be one of those teams that upsets, one of the other quote unquote powerhouse teams, as we get to that point. So definitely looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season goes, not only for your team, but for everybody else. Extra point is up and good. $14-0 Chargers. I appreciate that. And again, somebody's got to represent, the Mariners to the fullest. And, I had a goal, of doing 155 games out of 162, and I would only miss one a month. And the only reason I would miss one a month is if we were going to do WWE for like a pay-per-view, like a PLE, like SummerSlam or Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. And we stayed true to that. And again, now, with the ESPN merger with NFL Network and TKO and WWE, I'm not going to pay $30 a month, to watch wrestling. So it's like, I enjoy it, but that's too much. If it's like $9.99 a month, like $10 a month, I'll pay it, but I'm not paying $30 a month. And I can still watch it with a slight delay, but it's not the same if I'm going to stream. So you can't be that far behind when you're doing like wrestling streams. So it looks like moving forward, I'm going to try to do every game. So next year's goal will be to do all 162 plus playoffs and not miss any, unless, I'm under the weather or I have some kind of issue. But no one else is going to grind out, that many games. And again, we made a lot of ground. We gained a lot of views, a lot of subs, got a great amount of, special people that were added to the channel this year. And it definitely sparked, some interest, from people that like yourself that might have, not really been following them as much as you did back in the day. But again, this is a new era. And moving forward, the Mariners made the playoffs in 2022. They made it this year to the ALCS Game 7. And I feel like we're going to be competitive and pretty good every year moving forward for the next 10 or 20 years. Now, are there going to be some years where we miss the playoffs and we end up getting like third place in the division? Of course. But I think more times than not, if we keep building the way that we, have currently been building, like let's say in the next 20 years, hopefully we make the playoffs 13 out of 20. And out of those 13 years, hopefully we get to a World Series once or twice. And I think that we will have a chance to do that. So, you just got to crawl before you walk, and you got to go through, the losses before you get the wins. And, it just sucks that we were so close. But again, something to look forward to and, to build on moving forward. Yeah, I think they're losing a lot of fans, Sarah, again, because I feel like the interest of Raw and SmackDown and NXT has gone down and a lot of people aren't paying that $30 a month. So, and short return there for the Vikings, and they need to get at least 3 on the board sooner than later here for Carson Wentz. But I'm already itching for Mariner baseball. I can't lie. When you put in that much time and effort and energy and love into something, it definitely was, heartbreaking. And I know some people were assuming I was just going to have a fucking meltdown after we lost and whatnot. But, you got to handle it professionally. And, again, sometimes things happen in sports that are hard to deal with, and I think a lot of us are still on that hangover effect after what happened a few days ago. Pass towards that sideline, incomplete. Intended receiver there was Jay Jetta, Justin Jefferson, and his numbers are way down, obviously, with this quarterback carousel. With no J.J. McCarthy, and they got Wentz in there. 2nd down and 10 at the Minnesota 30. And off up the middle, and great to see Aaron Jones, who's been away from the Minnesota Vikings for quite some time with some injuries. And we'll see if he ends up being a factor. He's going to have to be, because again, Wentz doesn't have a whole lot of time to be able to go to Addison and Jetta. So if they can end up having a decent running game to kind of open up, and keep the defense a little honest, then eventually you'll get that play action bootleg over the top for that big play to Addison or Jetta for a tutty. But again, Wentz does not have a whole lot of time. Neither does Justin Herbert. 3rd down and 5 at the Minnesota 35. Global broadcast here on Prime Video. Shotgun set. May only bring 4. Wentz towards the sideline. Wow, what a throw. Jay Jetta, what a catch. 1st down, Vikings, goal. That was an incredible laser that if you watch the tightrope on this football, this looked like it was going to get picked. And he stares down his receiver and puts it only in the spot that Jetta could get it. I've been watching Wentz a long time. That might have been one of the best throws I've seen Wentz make since he was on the Philadelphia Eagles when he was going to win MVP before he got injured. Wow, that was incredible. Hopefully we see more of that so this game can be a little bit more competitive. I mean, we're going to need those throws. First down and 10, halfback toss. Aaron Jones, and gets clipped up on that D-line. Short gain. Oh, I mean, not with no bias whatsoever, Dodgers. I mean, there's no way that Toronto's winning. Not going against what the Los Angeles has with the pitching with Snell and Yamamoto and Ohtani, plus everything else that they have. Nice catch. Now, I think the Blue Jays can win a game or two, just like I think the Mariners could have done the same, and I think the Mariners could, possibly win even more if they would have made it, but again, we'll have to wait on that maybe till next year or the year after or whenever that, magical day comes. But I'll find it very hard to believe that anyone's going to, beat Los Angeles. They won it last year. This team is better this year. We'll see where it goes. And even if the Mariners were in the National League and the Dodgers beat us, I would still say the same thing. Little screen pass, Aaron Jones. And scampers towards the sideline with a gain of a few. God, they got so many injuries out there. Offense and defense. Aaron Jones with that 2-yard gain. Bud Dupree pushing him out of bounds. Shotgun set here on 2nd down and 8 at the Charger 38. Shotgun set, 3 wide receiver set. Wentz tipped. Oh! And off the deflection, Jetta almost got a hot potato as his ice is just dancing off his neck there. That's a couple million. And again, good awareness there by Jetta. And he was in the right place at the right time. Kind of surprised that the ball came to him off the deflection. And if he would have caught that and been able to bring it down, that could have been a big play. 3rd down and 8 as Wentz was incomplete to Naylor. Perryman was in coverage on the Charger 38. Shotgun set as the play clock ran down to 0. Little check down and a short gain. Yeah, it's unfortunate that Evans, had that injury and whatnot, but I still think the Bucs, we may not be the best team in the NFC. I still think that we are, one of the top 3, top 4. Obviously we lost to the Eagles, we lost to the Lions, and I feel that those two teams are better, at this time, but that doesn't mean that they'll be better later in the year as we get healthier. And I definitely would love payback on the Eagles and Lions later in the playoffs. But as long as we got Baker, again, we're going to be able to compete with almost anybody. 4th down and 5, kick is up, and it is good. Finally, the Vikings get on the board, thank God. But again, not having Bucky Irving, not having Mike Evans, not having Ibuka, not having Godwin, having guys on the defense and the secondary out, as well as offensive line. It's not normal to be like competitive, when you have all those injuries. And now we're going to play the Saints. And even though they're one of the worst teams in football, they're dirty. So again, I hope that they don't injure Baker Mayfield or one of our guys. They already took Godwin out in previous years. And again, I'm a little nervous when I play a team like that. Anyone that's linked to, any type of gate at the end, you already know that, it's not going to be a clean game and whatnot. So Bucks hate the Saints, Saints hate the Bucks, and I know we can win that game, and I know it'll be maybe a little bit closer than people think. Just like when we play the Falcons and the Panthers, anytime you play a team in the division, it's going to be a lot closer than people think. Even if someone's got a shit record like the Saints this year, they're gonna give everything they have. The only thing I'm worried about is them being dirty and then injuring more of the guys that I already have. So, we want to make sure that we're as healthy as possible. Yeah, well, he's the best player in the world. I mean, he's on that Babe Ruth level. I mean, 10 Ks and 3 home runs in a game. Like, there's no one, even Babe Ruth couldn't do that. So it's like, we're actually watching something incredibly crazy, right now in baseball. Like, Cal Raleigh, obviously an amazing player. Aaron Judge, an amazing player, but Ohtani is like in a class of his own. And again, especially if you can pitch and you pitch well and you're dominant and you have the ability, to hit, 1, 2, 3, 4 home runs in a game, pretty wild. And Reichard with that 54-yard field goal is good. 14-3 Chargers. But again, we will be doing the World Series Game 1 tomorrow between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays in Toronto. And then depending on what we get, for results, that'll determine what we do on the weekend. If the results aren't as good, then I'll end up doing Ducks in Wisconsin, and then we'll do Sunday Night Football. If the results are good, then we may end up doing every World Series game, and then once the World Series is over, then we can full-time go to the NFL and college football, and maybe sprinkle in a little NBA or NHL when it's appropriate as filler streams during the week. But I'll see how it goes tomorrow, and I'll make some thumbnails in advance, and we'll kind of go from there. And a short return there by the Chargers. I mean, it's a great time to be a baseball fan, that's for sure, And it's just nice to be able to see the Mariners being relevant, and we can be in the same breath as a lot of these other teams, who are typically good year in and year out. So now we just got to be able to prove that we can do it again and try to win the division again. First down and 10, man in motion. Herbert, play action. And looking downfield, he's got a man wide open. Gadsden again, wow! First down, Chargers. And again, everyone looking at Keenan Allen and Ladd McConkey, and then Gadsden just right there, ripping them up in that soft zone in the middle of the field. That part is open, and again, if you're going to end up matching up, a tight end, player with a linebacker, he's going to win that all day and all night. Gadsden, 40 yards. Down to the Minnesota 35. Yeah, I do Kraken games on the channel. Sometimes we'll do Kraken, Blazers, or if there's good matchups, in the NHL or the NBA. Obviously, the focal point is still, baseball, NFL, college football. And then once those all end, then we'll end up going, to a little NBA, a little NHL, a little NASCAR, around that, February, March, mode. And then obviously once we get back into baseball season, then it'll be Mariners nonstop for, 6-7 months straight. So. Shotgun set. Vikings putting pressure on the edge. And Keenan Allen, first down, Chargers, but there's a flag on the play. And that's got to be a hold on the offensive line, you would assume, or possibly offsides. Let's see. We have been getting some late hits on the quarterback as well for roughing the passer. This looks like it's on Minnesota. Offsides again. Unexcusable. Yeah, I was going to say maybe more like Antonio Gates, since he was on that team already. Yeah, crazy. I watched the game last night. They played great for 3 quarters. They've, been more defensive committed, which is nice to see since I'm a defensive-oriented fan, but Anthony Edwards was too much in the last 5 minutes, and then they ended up dropping the game. And I wake up early this morning and find out Chauncey Billups is, doing the whole gambling, ring and with the mafia and with current players and former players. And there's going to be a lot more information that comes out. And, based on the stuff that I read, it sounds like Gilbert Arenas is involved in and he might have been the snitch that snitched on everyone, like ended up getting a house, but he wasn't really involved in the, the big ring, where they had x-ray machines, going through the cards, special contacts and glasses to see markers, especially, design card shuffling machines that were rigged, just so that they could end up, playing with someone like Chauncey or, as part of that ring, someone that was a coach or someone that was a former player or current player. And, there's a lot of, it shows you, again, there's a lot of illegal stuff that goes on, especially now with sports betting being legal. And, they can crack down, here and there. But again, it makes you definitely wonder how much is that going on in all sports. And the answer is a lot. And Herbert gets sacked. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. It's like you want to be able to feel like what you're watching is real, but again, after you get all these individuals getting caught, more and more often, not just referees like back in the day with Donaghy, when they did the Lakers and the Kings series back in Shaq and Kobe's era, where the Kings should have won and they purposely made the Lakers, go three-peat. And, now with gambling being legal in some of the states, obviously, they're going to try to do anything and everything to get an edge, based on if the player is going to play or, if you're going to end up, turning the ball over and playing bad on purpose, like Rozier did, so that way that his family or friends or people that he owed money could win, and you got to think how many NBA players are doing that, to help out, whatever, their gambling debts, their friends, and if they end up having an under or an over, it definitely feels like it's possible, and it has been happening for quite some time. It just depends on how big of a, thing are we talking about. And obviously if you're dealing with the mafia, that's pretty big. 3 or 4 different crime families, linked in with NBA coaches and players and former players. Herbert, 3rd and 17, going deep, incomplete. Ladd McConkey was the intended receiver as Herbert goes on his back. And no call there. It's a little bit easier, to do things on the NBA side rather than, with baseball and the NFL side. And Dicker is going to go for a long attempt here on 4th and 17. Dicker, the kicker, 49-yard attempt on the left hash. 49-yard attempt, kick is up. And no good. Wide left. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see if, LeBron is involved somehow, some way. But I mean, just like Ohtani, if you're, a big personality that makes, the league a lot of money, somehow, some way, if someone in LeBron's camp was involved, or even if LeBron was involved, it's not like they're going to do anything, to someone like that. Obviously they can take down, Chauncey Billups. And I think a lot of Blazer fans, didn't really want him as a coach anyways, kind of ran his course. And, obviously if you have a gambling problem like that, and, eventually he's going to come back to get you. And, now we have to, hope that this season that we had a lot of hope for, can end up being, maybe an 8 seed, but based on all this extra drama that's going around in the Pacific Northwest, it wouldn't surprise me if they miss the playoffs again, just based off the distraction factor alone. And, it's not like Chauncey was the greatest coach either. Again, for a defensive oriented type of player, he didn't really have great defensive schemes most of the time, but, again, Drew Holiday and some of the new additions, Yang, are kind of exciting, but it definitely put a black eye, on the franchise. That's for sure. Sarah with a $5, appreciate you. Another $5 holla on the Dono train. Appreciate that. Every dollar counts. 14-3 Chargers. Appreciate it very much. Yes, he definitely is. (14-3) Chargers. 6:06 left in the second quarter. And you have to assume the Minnesota Vikings offense will be a little bit better in the second half after they make some adjustments. But, obviously any type of field goals that end up being missed to keep Minnesota in the game. And Minnesota desperately needs a touchdown here in the last 6 minutes. But at the very least, if they get 3, another field goal, at least that way that they'll be somewhat in range of not getting blown out. Wentz. And a short run there for Minnesota. Flag on the play. And again, Minnesota does have defensive players good enough to get a pick six like they did earlier today, but it ended up, getting reversed, or a fumble for a touchdown as Jackson with the hold, the rookie on the line. So again, Minnesota is probably going to need their defense to score a touchdown. And again, they're going to need to be able to get someone in the end zone, whether it be Jetta, Addison, Aaron Jones is back, but again, they're going to need maybe a little bit of help, with some PIs or holds, to get a few extra penalties to get them a little bit closer in range. Offensive holding with that 10-yard penalty there by Jackson. First down and 20, screen pass to Jetta, and a minimal gain there as he gets pushed out of bounds. Well, there's certain guys their contracts are up. So obviously Naylor is the number one, individual to get that, all settled in and figured out. And then obviously Polo, I think most of us would agree that if we can afford him, that would be the guy that we would want to bring back. But guys like Mitch Garver, we don't need him back on the team. So really for the guys that with the contracts that are due, we don't need Caleb Ferguson back either. So it's pretty much Naylor number one, Polo 2, and then go from there and keep making the pen a little bit better as well. And then we got young guys as Jetta gets a nice catch there. We got guys like Colt Emerson and, Ben Williamson and Cole Young and then a few other guys, that'll be in the farm like Lazaro Montez. And, you got Durangelo as a pitcher, lefty and righty, Cade Anderson, the first round pick from LSU. So there's a lot to be excited about as we go into next year and beyond. Nice catch there by Jetta. He's single-handedly trying to help them move the chains here. 15-yard gain down to the Minnesota 47. Third down and 2. Hand that ball off to Aaron Jones. Now, Naylor will be back with the Mariners. I can almost 100% feel that will happen. Tipped up in the air and knocked down by Wentz, but it looks like he injures his arm doing that. And I think Geno has to go. We don't have enough money for him, Again, the home runs, were great, but the strikeouts, not so much. And his defense at times was a little suspect. So, I think if I had to choose between, Geno or Polo, I'm going Polo. And obviously Naylor is the first choice. That's, no question there. But, get Naylor's deal done. And then after that, if you had to choose Polo or Geno, I'm going Polo. even though Polo at times is a little inconsistent as well. But, I don't think, if you have to, look at money, you got to make sure you give the money to Naylor and then see what we have left over. And flag on the play as the Vikings punt, and Wentz is wincing on the sideline. I mean, I love good vibes only, but I think that, based off age and money, again, we already got, Ben Williamson there, and we can always look at another guy that might be cheaper, that has good stats that we can bring in. And, obviously you want to make sure you have good players at first and third. And if Ben Williamson can just figure out how to hit, his defense is already top tier. It's just, can we get him, to be a 15 to 20 home run kind of guy? And can he bat, 260 to 300, and if he can do that, then we're going to be fine. And then we can always find another guy, in the off season to compete with him if they don't think he's ready right away. But I love me some Geno. I love the players for the most part that we've had this year, but again, we're not going to be able to afford everyone. And we got offensive holding there on Taylor, and we got 4:04 left in the second quarter as they go to a commercial break. I mean, you got obviously, Ben Williamson, Cole Young, Colt Emerson, that just got promoted up to AAA. And, obviously some of these guys are not going to be maybe ready just yet. And, they might be good at some things, like Williamson's good at D, but, his hitting isn't really there yet. But when he did get sent back down to AAA, his hitting improved. But again, hitting in AAA and hitting in the big leagues is completely different. I mean, you can hit, 300, 400, in AAA, and then all of a sudden come to the big leagues and, skunk it up and be kind of bad. So, we'll see where it goes. I mean, we got plenty of guys in the, infield and the outfield and pitchers. And, we got a lot of guys in the farm that are very, very talented. And, most of those guys will get called up within the next 3 years. And, we'll see what we get. And, based on the guys that we sign and the guys that we let go, then we'll just have to look at what holes that we have. And we just got to try to improve the team, position by position to go on that deep run again. So I think Colt Emerson will be better than Cole Young. Colt looks like he's got a little bit more of a skill set. And then Cole Young and Ben Williamson are kind of like project guys, where it's like they have the talent, but they're not there yet. Like, they might have defense going for them, but they're not really there hitting wise just yet. So, like, even though Cole Young did win us a couple games, but just too inconsistent, to be a starter at this point. So. But again, there's a lot of quality guys that are in single A, high A, double A, triple A. I mean, I follow everything Mariners, so I'm not going to watch full games of single A, high A, double A, triple A, but I definitely will check with beat writers and anything on socials and any highlights or anything I can watch. I'm definitely tuning in. And then if there's anything that's ever, broadcasted, I might watch a few innings here and there. If it's someone special like Durangelo or Kate Anderson, I want to be able to see how they do. So 14-3 Chargers with less than 4 minutes to go. And a 3-yard gain there by Vidal. Redmond with the tackle. 2nd down and 7 at the Charger 9. 14-3 Los Angeles. Shotgun set on 2nd down and 7. Man in motion. Herbert. They only bring 4. Throw to the sideline and a great form tackle there. Harris with the tackle. Beautiful. Wrapping him up. Textbook. Cade with a K, not with a C. Only reason I know that is because STL is a big LSU baseball fan, and he was sending me all kinds of stuff about Cade and, thinking that the Mariners were going to draft him, and he was right. But I agree with that as well. I think Cade and Colt will be the two best. I agree. Shotgun set. Herbert. And essentially you could have those guys maybe even start next year, at some point in the season. So, Cade could end up coming in as being like the new Brian Wu at the 5 when Wu first came in. And we'll see if Colt, obviously he would be playing second base, and we obviously have a need there. Again, we got JP at short, but, we'll see where it goes, because Colt could play short or second, almost interchangeable, but we will see. Yeah, especially if Ben's hitting gets better. Same thing with Cole. If they're hitting and their defense continue to get better, those could be factors for us as well. Herbert with the play action, bootleg, looking, firing it down in the middle of the field in that open, soft zone. They are getting killed there. And again, they love to blitz, but that's the one spot in the field that's open. And Herbert continues to use his legs, use his eyes, and to be able to find guys open downfield, throwing away from his body. Beautiful. Lad McConkey, first down, Chargers. Bolts, I see you. Yeah, but I'm definitely excited about Cade a lot, to be able to see him get into the starting lineup. He'll be more advanced than Durangelo, and then at some point we'll see Durangelo, on the team down the road in a couple years. But, I would assume Cade will be on the roster pretty quick, and again, we'll see what we have with our pitching rotation as well, based off contracts of guys. And, someone will look into seeing what we have with Castillo, how many years he has left and whatnot, if he will possibly not be on the team next year. And obviously if he ends up, not being on the team, then obviously Cade can fill that role immediately. And again, hopefully we don't have as many injuries either. That was not ideal for us in 2025. 14-3 Chargers, 2-minute warning, 1:57 left in the second quarter. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 50 likes, 100 on the dono train. And we need 5 to 15 subs. We needed 26 subs to get to 23,200 to start off the day. $27 subs to go. $14-3 Chargers. State Farm halftime show coming up quick, and obviously the impact of Joe Alt has given the Chargers the 14-3 lead. And Gadsden has been money today. They definitely did not have that on their bingo card coming in. They thought they were just going to blitz Herbert. He would make mistakes like he did with that pick 6, even though it got called back. And again, he just has to be able to make his reads quickly and efficiently. Looked like a false start there on the Chargers, and Herbert takes off. Great speed for a guy that is 6'5", 6'6". First down, Bolts, move the chains. And again, if they're not going to have a spy on Herbert, you best believe he's going to have to run. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, maybe about 50 yards. And if he gains, 50 yards, that could be the difference with a few key first downs, or maybe even running it into the end zone himself in the second half. Go, Herbert, go. There you go. Another positive gain by Justin Herbert. Yeah, he started the year in single A, and again, to go from single A, double A, triple A, and to be on the squad, and now pitching game 1, pretty wild. Yeah, I mean, if we can have Cade have an impact, like you Savage, wow, how incredible would that be, Do you know, reflect what the status is of Castillo's contract? Is this year his last year with the ball club? And then we can move Cade in his spot if he's not on the roster next year? I mean, having, Wu, Gilbert, Kirby, Anderson, and Miller, that sounds pretty sexy. Even though Castillo, was pretty reliable in certain games for us. There's no doubt about that. Some of our starters were great. Some of our starters played terrible, just like any team. It's all about consistency. And Joe Alt is a tough SOB. Got his ankle stepped on and he's still out there. Shows you the importance of even just one dominant offensive lineman player. Herbert, wow, threading the needle. First down, Chargers. Ladd McConkey. He said, I did this at Georgia. Now I'm doing it in Los Angeles, baby. And the Vikings, they love to blitz. They're the number one, blitz team in 2025. But again, if you don't have good, secondary and linebackers, you're getting torched. You have to get to Herbert. And floater to Keenan Allen, incomplete. Signed through 2028, but his no trade clause ended this year. So what do you think is going to happen with Castillo? You think our starting rotation, our starting five is going to be intact that we had this year going into next year, or is it going to be a little bit different? Because that would be the only individual that we may, move on from, I would assume, right? Second down and 10. Herbert, floater, one-on-one. Touchdown, Chargers, Ladd McConkey. And it is good. Wow. Perfect dime by Justin Herbert. And again, the Vikings do have the ability to blitz, and they do have the ability to get fumbles and interceptions for touchdowns. But again, if you don't get to Herbert and you give him time, he is going to rip you apart. Ladd McConkey, 27 yards, 20-3 Chargers. Vikings need a touchdown desperately. And if they would have picked someone like Jackson Dart instead of J.J. McCarthy, maybe they would be like the Giants with him and Scattaboo. You definitely need a quarterback that will suit your players. And again, to get a quarterback that can't really throw, how does that benefit Addison, Hawkinson, and Jay Jetta, as well as Aaron Jones? And the answer is it doesn't. I don't know what they were thinking picking J.J. McCarthy, but it did not work. And on top of that, now he's hurt. Wasted draft pick, especially when you have amazing weapons like that. You can't get those guys the ball if you don't have anyone that's proficient enough to actually be efficient in the offense. 21-3 Chargers. Extra point is up and good. Okay, I was just trying to see if you were on the same page with me. So I would assume that they would try to trade him, yeah. Because obviously getting Naylor, figured out is the number one priority. And the cool thing is Naylor wants to be here. He's embraced, obviously, the city and, rocks like Kraken jerseys and whatnot. So anytime you end up getting a player like that does things like that, it's pretty rare, especially for a guy that just came to the squad. So I love everything about him. And again, if, we don't get him, again, the team is going backwards. We have to get him. That's the big key of success for the Mariners moving forward is making sure we have Josh Naylor at first. Well, I kept telling you AR was garbage. If you have the lowest completion percentage out of any quarterback, at some point you just give up, and he's injury prone. He just, didn't have enough experience playing football, just playing a couple years. That's a gamble, and again, sometimes a change of scenery, will do you, do you well. And again, it's more than just Daniel Jones though, too. It's the running game is very proficient, and efficient, with Jonathan Taylor, and offensive line healthy, defense, obviously pretty healthy and playing well. Coaching is on point, and, they are playing like they believe, and again, we haven't seen the Colts play like they believe they're going to win in a long time. So, Sometimes someone else's trash in a bad system can be someone else's treasure in a good system and in a different city and, something brand new. So, I mean, even look at Aaron Rodgers after, him bouncing around from team to team. I don't think anyone anticipated him being good with Pittsburgh, much better than obviously we saw him with the Jets, and same type of thing. Shotgun set. Wentz. And in the middle of the field is open. Same thing with the Chargers there. Keeping that soft zone open in the middle of the field. Addison is there. First down, Vikings. Yeah, hopefully he'll end up dropping Boras and getting somebody else. So that way we don't have to pay as much money. Or maybe he'll just take a discount to want to play with Seattle, That wouldn't shock me either. Naylor doesn't seem like a very greedy guy, Seems like, a personal fit, based on the fans and the players is more important to him than money. Obviously he wants to get paid fairly, but I don't think he wants to, make anyone go bankrupt just to have him on the team. So seems like he's got some good morals about him. First down and 10. Minnesota needs a touchdown here desperately before half. And Wentz steps up and almost fumbles and gets turned around. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is. Time for a Oway sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Not every, player in sports is going to be a character guy, a guy that actually has good character and good morals, who's a good teammate, that isn't selfish, who's selfless, and, wants to be able to put the team before himself. And, I haven't seen too many guys like Josh Naylor, be with the Mariners. And again, it's like once you fall in love with a particular player, you got to make sure you never let him go. But Caleb Ferguson, goodbye. Gino, goodbye. Garver, goodbye. We can let some of our young guys get some playing time like Harry Ford, Colt Emerson and others, Ben Williamson, Cole Young. And then Cade will obviously get his time at some point. And then we can look at free agency and hopefully get some good guys in the bullpen. That's really where we need to focus the money. If we can get some guys in the bullpen to bolster that and then not worry about signing, infield or outfield players. And another sack lunch right up the middle by the Chargers. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Another sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Offensive line breaking down for Minnesota. Yeah, and sometimes people take people for granted, right? You end up having a good skill set somewhere. Defense was, amazing last year for Minnesota, right? And then obviously if you have a quarterback like a Darnold, but it's kind of been the year of the traveling quarterback, with Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones. And some of these guys got a little bit more love in the past than others, but it does show you, and Aaron Rodgers, like you might like some of these guys, you might not like some of these guys, based off their personality, but it shows you if you go, somewhere new, just like when you start a new job and you go somewhere new, sometimes you're going to get better results, based on, who the owner is and who you are interacting with. And, it's nice to be able to see guys kind of revitalize their careers. And Jetta with a big catch there. No timeout, so they got to spike it here. And everyone is hustling to the line. Tick, 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 tick. 13, 12, 11. Oh, they're just going for the long field goal. Wow. 4th and 1. 5, 4, 3, 2. Kick is up. 53-yarder. And it is good right before half. Wow. No good. Oh, I thought it was going to be good. And then at the last minute, it fell short. Wow. 21-3. Chargers. Unbelievable. Yeah, Naylor is playing. I haven't seen Hawkinson, get really any looks out there. Let me look at the injury report. Darisaw, O'Neal, Williams, Van Ginkel, and Ham. So, yeah, he's out there, but they're not giving him any opportunities. And then Jefferson, Becton, Derwin James, Deculus, and Disley. 21-3 Chargers. And halftime will be pretty quick. It's only about 11 or 12 minutes. So, yeah, JSN's the number one wide receiver right now in the NFL. I mean, if you're looking at everything that he's been able to do. But again, you have to be able to get him the ball. And he already showed that he had that kind of skill set. And obviously with DK and Lockett no longer there are more opportunities, to go to, a guy that would have been maybe the 2 or the 3 the last couple of years is now undoubtedly the 1. And I'm not shocked one bit that JSN is, one of the best receivers in the game. And again, you're only as good as your quarterback is. And again, they've made some pretty good improvements, obviously, with their scheme on that offense. And still at times, it's a little inconsistent. Same thing with the defense. They kind of go in these runs where they look really good, and then they have these moments where they look kind of bad or out of position. But again, overall, I would assume that most Hawk fans are pretty, excited of where they're sitting, especially with the Niners and their injuries still floating around. And then with the Rams still floating around, with Stafford and Devontae Adams, and obviously the injuries to Puka Nacua and some other guys. The division is very up for grabs, so to speak, the NFC West. So just like the AFC West, with the Broncos and the Chargers and the Chiefs. Same thing with the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Rams. It's the only division in both leagues, both conferences, that you have 3 teams battling. Every other, division is like 1 or 2. You got the Colts and the Jags, or, you got the Steelers, or you got the Bills, or you got the Buccaneers, and everyone else is, kind of battling it out 1 or 2 spots. And obviously, for whatever reason, the NFC West and the AFC West got 3 teams battling. So. Yeah, Warren has been great for you, just like Ibuka has been great for us. It just, it really sucks, that McMillan had the neck injury in preseason. It's like, if I could actually get Baker to have everyone healthy with Bucky, and then with Sean and with Rashad, have my 3 running backs healthy, have Evans and Godwin, and then Ibuka and McMillan, and then Otten, and then Tez even as like 5th string, and Sterling Shepard. And it's like, if you could always get everyone healthy, I think that, we're right there, with like the Lions and the Eagles. But unfortunately, some of those injuries of certain guys have had, pretty big effects, and I don't really think that Detroit game was officiated very fairly. But again, I still think the Bucs are one of the better teams in the NFC. But again, we got to be able to find ways to beat, teams like the Eagles and the Lions. And, again, I would love to get some payback on them in the playoffs at some point. So. Oh, Patriots have been fantastic. I don't think anyone saw that coming. No one saw the Patriots being good this year or the Colts being good this year, not to the extent of wins that they have at this time. And sometimes that's great for the NFL. Sometimes teams that we think are going to be great end up getting injured, or they underachieve, right? Or you get teams that you have no expectations for, like the Patriots and the Colts, and then all of a sudden they do awesome. And obviously the season's not over yet, but based on what we've seen, this sample size, about a third of the way, through the season, pretty exciting, to be able to see, where those teams are at. And yeah, I don't think anybody anticipated, the Patriots being a good football team this year. And if halftime will go pretty quick here, we only got 8 minutes to go, and we'll be right back at it. That's why sports is always crazy, just because you were good last year doesn't mean you're going to be good this year, and it's definitely a kind of a give and take. It also depends on your draft picks, the health of the team, free agents, and also if you ended up having a new coordinator or head coach and how that affects the whole scheme and whatnot. And, there's a number of, factors that come involved. And, it's kind of cool to be able to see teams that normally aren't relevant being relevant this year. On 3 Chargers at halftime. Yeah, but also too injuries. Lamar getting injured. You can't win without Lamar. And then not only that, you had Derrick Henry fumbling every game for the first 3-4 games. Tough schedule. And again, normally, Baltimore is going to be a playoff team. One of the top 3 or 4 EFC. And again, that's why injuries can really be a devastating factor, especially turnovers. By your superstars. You can't have Derrick Henry fumbling late in the fourth quarter and back-to-back games and thinking that they're going to, be able to get wins off the other teams that they play. And yeah, definitely, I don't think anyone really saw that coming as well. But for Baltimore, for me, it's more like coaching. The coaching is not very good. Harbaugh has blown more games for the Ravens than any team in the last 5 to 6 years, especially in the second half and primarily in the fourth quarter. His decision-making with his coordinators has not been good, offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. And then on top of that, now you have, Lamar being injured as well as some other main pieces being injured. And, all of that adds up to not having a very successful season, unfortunately. Because obviously the NFL is better when the Ravens are, relevant. Chargers are going to receive the second half kickoff, which is not ideal for Minnesota. 3-3 record for Minnesota, 2-1 away record. 4-3 Charger record when they started off 3-0, but they've dropped quite a few games, but all back. And that's a big reason why that, the game is the way that it is right now. And they are 2-2 at home. And most Charger games end up being road games because, they usually don't have too many fans that show up for whatever reason to Los Angeles. Usually it's feels like a road game when you're watching them. So. But I'm looking forward to the World Series tomorrow. And again, I'm kind of thinking, since Jaden Daniels is injured and, it's only Steelers and Packers and, and obviously I can watch the Oregon Duck game on my own, while we're doing the World Series. I can have it on, recorded on my DVR on the side. So I'm thinking probably doing the complete World Series is probably the best, thing for the channel, and then after that is completely done, then we'll fully transition into college football, NFL, and then maybe sprinkling in slightly a little NBA or NHL if needed, if we need, filler streams at that point. And obviously we know NASCAR is coming down to the nitty-gritty as well, so. But I'm definitely going to be missing baseball when it's over. That's for damn sure. All right, less than 4 minutes to go before halftime is up. Yeah, but the thing is Minnesota has something that some of those other teams don't. They actually have a good defense, most of the time. Today, they're getting ripped apart and whatnot, but, usually the defense is pretty good. Maybe not as good as it was with Darnold last year, but, I'm not sure if Minnesota is on the same level as Vegas or Jets or Saints, that type of level. But, and again, it's who do they have at quarterback? I mean, you got J.J. McCarthy and fucking Carson Wentz. What do you expect? It's you almost have to score with your defense or special teams once, or you're not going to be in the game, And then obviously if Minnesota gets a couple defensive plays, then that gives them a better chance to get things going. But I believe Jeddah only has 1 touchdown all year. So, I mean, again, normally Justin Jefferson, even with a guy that was criticized like Kirk Cousins, imagine, obviously now Kirk is older and injured and, he can't really do it anymore. But, even a Kirk Cousins, can make Jeddah, into a superstar. But now, obviously, with J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz, that ain't going to cut it, And again, if the Vikings were smart, they should have drafted Jackson Dart. That would have been the perfect piece to be able to go to Jeddah and Addison and Hawkinson and Aaron Jones, and you would be sitting, on a perfect player to be able to make that team relevant. But again, for whatever reason, they decided to go with a guy that normally just handed the ball off and relied on the defense at Michigan to get the job done. It was probably the most like head-scratching draft pick that I've seen. And I get it. He's near there. Michigan, Minnesota, you're kind of near each other. But just because you're kind of near each other, I mean, is that really the right piece based on the offensive weaponry that you have? Now, if they didn't have Hawkinson or Jetta or Addison or Aaron Jones, and they were just some shit team, then yeah, go ahead and draft JJ McCarthy. But, when you need a quarterback to get your receivers and tight ends the football, I don't think McCarthy really screams that. And obviously Carson Wentz can't really do it either. So, but again, if you end up making the wrong, draft pick, it's going to set you backwards. And I imagine every single Minnesota fan right now is probably thinking, damn it, I wish we had Sam Darnold. And again, anytime you end up losing a guy, what does a fan base typically do? Talk shit. We didn't need him. He sucks. He won't do anything in Seattle. We didn't even need him. Our defense is the reason why we were so good. We'll be just fine with JJ. We'll be fine with Wentz. And then now, 6-7 weeks into the season, you're looking at what Sam is doing in Seattle and what you have on your plate, and you're probably thinking, fuck, we probably should have paid Sam the money and kept him here. And again, a lot of times, when you get a guy that might not be a top 5 quarterback, hell, he might not even be a top 10. He might be a guy that normally is, traditionally viewed as a top 16 quarterback. But just because you're 11th or 13th in the NFL, you got to remember there's 32 teams. So if you're 13th out of 32, you can still be a good quarterback, like a cousin Sam Darnold kind of type, and again, it just depends on if you're willing to pay the money. And some teams are cheap and they're not willing to, and they'll move on. And they think that they have a personnel group that will draft someone that could fill the shoes, or you end up making a mistake like Minnesota did. And now you're going backwards. So. And again, I know Sam might not be everyone's favorite, just like you're looking at Daniel Jones and Baker, obviously, when you find the right fit, you want to make sure that you stay there. But, it's just kind of weird that you actually had someone that might not be popular, but played really well. I mean, maybe not against Detroit, at the end, but, overall played pretty fucking well, could move the football and was impressive. And then you just gave up on him, and again, that shows you some organizations are smart, some are stupid, and they don't get it, and again, we thought at some point Kevin O'Connell at certain moments has shown that he's been a pretty good, head coach, but then at other times kind of makes some boneheaded decisions. So, when you're in that Sean McVay coaching tree, you expect more. And to me, he's gone backwards tremendously. At one point, he might have been considered as an up-and-coming, top 10 coach. Not anymore. Not in my book. So, especially with that J.J. McCarthy pick, that was stupid. Jackson Dart would have been perfect. All right, we're about coming back here from halftime. Chargers are about to receive the football. Yeah, you go 14-3 and then you say, nah, we're going to move on. Like, I'm very curious what they thought they were going to get out of J.J. McCarthy. It's not like he ever really threw the football at Michigan. I mean, they handed the ball off and they played defense, and that's how they won against the Huskies. And they won, obviously the Natty. And they, ran that type of offense. Like, why would you think that would be a good fit there in the NFL? Like, what made you think that he could make the big NFL throws if he barely threw the ball in college? Like, make it make sense, but, Davis, 28 yards to the Chargers, 33. First down and 10. Handoff up the middle. And again, Chargers pretty impressive. No Najee Harris, no Amarian Hampton. They're going with Vidal and others, third, fourth, fifth string. And they're still able to get, some chunk yardage plays out of their third, fourth, fifth string guys, which is pretty impressive. But again, the offensive line needs to be healthy enough for them to do that. They've got 3 of their top 4 backs injured, which is wild. Second down and 3 after that nice 7-yard run from Vidal, but they're getting good, movement up front with the offensive line with Alt being back as well. And off up the middle. And look at that. Gash in Minnesota right up the middle. First down, Chargers. Move the chains. I still think if Geno was still in Seattle, he'd be successful as well, though. It's not like, obviously Geno going to the Raiders, they don't have the same type of personnel. So it's obviously going to be a little bit different of a scenario there. But I think if Geno would have stayed in Seattle, I still think that they would be pretty productive with him as well. Another guy that was kind of hated on unfairly. It's like if the offensive line is one of the worst in the NFL, you can't expect him to win you every single game. And obviously the quarterback is going to get the love when you win and the blame when you lose. But again, how many quarterbacks are going to play well if the offensive line is bottom two? You could have Patrick Mahomes on the Seahawks last year and he would have had a lot of struggles, and that's just, the truth. Again, you got to have a good offensive line. 8-yard run there by Vidal. First down and 10, Bolts. 9-yard gain there by Vidal. Wilson with the tackle. Second down and 1 at the Minnesota 43. Handoff up the middle, and finally the Minnesota defense wakes up. And the big thing that I'm noticing with Minnesota, on the defensive side, is Andrew Van Ginkel. How great he was on the team last year. He's got a neck issue. So again, when you don't have a player like that out there, or a few of the other impact guys, but especially Van Ginkel, that was one of the key contributors. And if he's not out there, I can definitely, his presence being on the field, you knew it every game last year. And obviously him not being out there, you can definitely feel that as well. Third down and 1 on the Minnesota 43. Play action fake, bootleg, Herbert, check down. He could have ran that first down himself, but decides to have that nice little short toss. And that's a first down, Bolts. Chains. Herbert to Vidal. Cashman with the tackle there, pushing him out. First down and 10 at the Minnesota 33. Herbert under center. Herbert, hands off. And Vidal ends up getting a short gain. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 50 likes. 100 on the dono train. And 5 to 15 subs. Let's go. 21-3 Chargers. 3-yard loss there from Vidal. Wilson with the coverage. Second down and 13 at the Minnesota 36. Minnesota needs a pick six or a fumble for a touchdown desperately to get back into this game. Shotgun set, Herbert. And right in the middle, in that soft zone, if they're not going to change their scheme, all they're going to have to do is run crossing routes just in the middle of the field there, and they're going to get torched. Ladd McConkey with a nice grab there. Whether it's Gadsden or if it ends up being Ladd McConkey or Keenan Allen or any of the others. 24 plays for the Vikings. The Chargers have 20 first downs. Wild. Incredible. 11-yard gain there from Ladd McConkey. Harrison Smith with the coverage. Third down and 2 at the Minnesota 25. And timeout is called. Third down and 2 with 10-12 left in the third quarter. 21-3 Chargers. All right, shotgun set. Herbert, run, Herbert. And the defense collapsing on him. And good defense there by Minnesota finally with the coverage on Herbert. And we'll see what kind of field goal opportunities we'll have here for the Chargers. And Dicker coming in. 43-yard attempt for Dicker, the kicker. Snap is high. Kick is up. And just through the crossbar and good. Great job by the placeholder off that high snap to get that ball laces out and to be able to get that down. 24-3 Los Angeles. I mean, when you're looking at the team on paper, there's definitely some, things that you like when you look at the names offensively and defensively. But, again, we will have to see, how Seattle matches up against the big boys like Tampa, the Eagles, the Lions, and even though some of those teams might end up dropping some games throughout the season, again, and we obviously know the Niners and the Rams, will be battling with them in the NFC West. And, obviously, I'm not really sure if there's going to be anybody else, that we're really going to be worried about. Obviously the Eagles have that division kind of, I wouldn't say fully under wraps. There might be some movement by the Commanders or the Cowboys. Same thing goes with the Falcons and the Panthers. One thing we know for sure is the Saints are looking for the first pick in the draft and they're tanking, and then obviously you got the Packers and the Lions, and even the Bears are improving, and we'll see, what happens, as the season progresses with them. Maybe Minnesota will be the team in last place in the North when it's all said and done. So, it'll be interesting to see, how it ends up kind of all playing out. But, having JSN emerge as a one, and again, offensive line has played better this year than in previous years, and you got some pretty good defensive pieces there as well. And, there has some, been some individuals that have gotten torched bad, like Reek Woolen and whatnot. We'll see if anyone wants him, and whatnot. Obviously great in his rookie season and can't really cover now for whatever reason, but there's still a lot of other, good pieces, on the D-line, linebacking core and secondary. So it'll be interesting to see, how injuries stack up and how the division plays itself out. And, it definitely is going to be exciting to see what happens in the AFC West. Broncos, Chargers, Chiefs. You're probably going to get two teams that make the playoffs out of three. And then you got the Rams, the Seahawks, and the Niners. And you're probably going to get two teams that make it out of three in that division as well. So. But it's good that they're in the division that they are, because then they can battle each other, and that you're going to be battle tested. When you play, if you're a Seahawks fan, you're going against the Rams and Niners, twice a year. And then you got to be able to see how you play against the Lions, the Packers, the Eagles, the Bucks. And if you can beat those teams, then where you're at. If you can't, and you're just coming up a little short, but you're in the game, that you have a chance to get payback later, possibly in the season. So just like when the Bucks barely beat Seattle in Seattle, again, that would be a great playoff matchup if we were to get Seahawks Buccaneers in the playoffs this year. Both offensive, teams have the weaponry. Defenses at times get a little bit burnt, but it's mostly because of injuries for my team. I can't say the same really for Seattle, but again, it depends on who you have as a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, injuries, rookies, veterans. And again, the Bucks have had the most injuries in the NFL besides pretty much the Niners. And we're still finding ways to compete besides that last game against the Lions that I felt that really wasn't officiated. Like, I don't mind losing, against guys like Goff and Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I just want the game to be officiated fairly. And it kind of seemed like, watching the Mariners, play against some of these other teams where it's not 50-50. It definitely feels like there's a little favoritism and whatnot. But when you end up losing close, or getting blown out, by the Lions, or barely losing to the Eagles like the Bucks did this year, there's always an opportunity for payback in the playoffs. And I obviously have those two teams circled, to get a little payback on. Halfback toss. And great defense there by the Chargers. Yeah, you got to give a lot of credit to the Niners and the Bucks, with all the injuries they've had to be able to be like relevant, where most teams would just fail, based on who they have out and, the impact of those guys, like having to go with a backup quarterback with the Niners and, not having Kittle and your wide receivers and then obviously, losing, Bosa and now Fred Warner and, but again, when you have Saleh and you end up having Shanahan, that you're going to be competitive. And a little check down to Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, first down, Vikings. There we go. That was a good offensive play. Yeah, especially with Mike Evans more than likely out for the year. Godwin's injured. Ibuka had a hammy. It's like I got Kate Otten. Bucky Irving's not available. It's wild that, pretty much everyone that I need on my offense is like banged up, but it also shows you how good Baker is. He can make Sterling Shepard look good. He can make Tez Johnson, at like 160 pounds look like a pretty good player, and again, a next man up mentality, but offensive line has been banged up. Defense in the secondary has been banged up, and, we've been exposed here and there, but Baker has done a great job, and I wouldn't want anyone else to be the quarterback for Tampa. He's confident. He's a leader. He's got grit, and he's going to run through a wall and for his players, and his players will do the same. And now I just got to hope that the team can get healthy so that way that we can actually match up with teams like the Lions and the Eagles, because if you're not 100% against teams like that, you're not going to win. Period. So, and even if you are 100%, you still may not win as good as the Lions and Eagles are. So, they may drop games here and there, but, overall, they're still kind of the cream of the crop in the NFC. So, shotgun set for Wentz, Jones, and pass towards the middle of the field, incomplete. Urasek, the intended tight end / receiver there. I hope McMillan comes back at the end of the year, but obviously the neck was not good, and again, having him and what he did for us last year when Godwin was out was huge. And, to not even have access to, some Ducks and Huskies, it kills me. It's like, I want to be able to see the Vita Veas and the McMillans and the Bucky Irvings and the Tez Johnsons like play together. And, unfortunately we haven't really been able to have a very healthy roster this year. Handoff up the middle to Aaron Jones. But it also shows you how good Baker has been with a lot of backups, which is really impressive. But I'm hoping McMillan comes back at the end of the year, especially with Mike Evans more than likely out for the year. And if he does come back, it'll be like, at the very, very end of the year, like in the playoffs, maybe, but realistically, his season's probably over. Aaron Jones up the middle for 5 yards. Tart with the tackle. 3rd down and 5 at the Minnesota 38, and they need a touchdown bad. Can we get them in the end zone, please? And then can we get a defensive touchdown for Minnesota as well, so we can get this game to be 17-24, not 24-3. And Wentz hanging on to the football too long. And Khalil Mack is there. It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a Charger sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Yeah, that was a great draft class for them. Last couple years, Campbell and Gibbs, Hutchinson. It shows you, this could be Detroit's year. They were really close last year, right? And fair caught at the 15-yard line. I'm good, brother. How are you? Everyone scoffed at their draft, I think, really besides us. I think you and me and Sarah, anyone that followed like Iowa football, again, what they bring. They usually bring players that are pretty NFL ready, like Tristan Wirfs or George Kittle and, going Dallas Clark and just going through all those different guys over the years, right? So it's like you end up getting a guy, from Iowa where maybe a lot of people in the country aren't very familiar, and whatnot. But, obviously Gibbs, we saw what he was able to do in college, but if you find the right scheme on the right team, then you can really show his full potential. And that's what he he was able to get with Detroit with Montgomery as well. So, again, they've been doing a fantastic job under Dan Campbell. And again, I wouldn't mind one bit seeing the Lions in the Super Bowl. I actually think would be pretty dope. Of course, I would want my team to try to get there, but obviously if I fall short, it would not hurt my feelings one bit seeing Detroit. That would probably be my number one choice after Tampa, if I'm being honest. If I could see them, take that next step, I think that would be pretty cool to see. And we've also seen some other teams take some big steps, like the Broncos and Bo Nix this year. Obviously, the Colts with Daniel Jones. And again, we will see, if they can be consistent enough, not only in the regular season for it to carry over against a tough opponent in the postseason. Are they going to be, like regular season great and then fall off? Or can you end up upsetting, kind of a bigger team, that maybe has been traditionally, a top dog like the Chiefs or the Bills? Could the Broncos or the Colts do the unthinkable? And maybe this year it could happen. Again, it feels like it's kind of open in the NFC and the AFC. So, yeah, the Gibbs Campbell draft picks were like, to me and you, we knew, like, and you already looked at like how they were drafting. And again, it's like, it really depends on if you watch college football or not. Like, I feel like if you watch college football, you're already going to be like 20 times smarter than someone that doesn't. If you just watch NFL only, you're not going to know, the ins and the outs and the progression of a player if you actually watch college football and watch the guy grow for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and then, then get drafted and understand, what you're getting. So I feel like if you end up following college football heavily, you're going to definitely know a lot more than the person that doesn't watch any or, rarely. Yeah, I wish we were streaming the Mariners in the World Series tomorrow as well. Vintage, I'm right there with you. Again, I had to take 2 recovery days after the loss. There was only Kraken and Blazers for me to do the last 2 days. Up in the air and intercepted. And that's a big pick. Did he come down with it? Wow, big pick for Minnesota. That's what they needed. And let's see if they can get a touchdown now. Here we go. But again, we ended up going a lot farther than most people anticipated. We won the AL West over the Astros. We won the ALDS in 15 innings over the Tigers. And we were 3 innings away and 1 bad pitch from Bizzardo to, winning 3-1 and going to the World Series against the Dodgers. And realistically, we probably would have lost in 5 or 6 games, unless we were able to, do the unthinkable and win, the first couple games at home and then stretch the series out to 6 or 7 games, which maybe could have happened, but we'll never know this year. But Dodgers are, Goliath, and David was always going to be Seattle or Toronto. And, no matter if it was Toronto or Seattle, no one was going to give us a chance. And, see how it goes tomorrow in the World Series. Hopefully it'll be more competitive than people think. But hopefully next year will be better, and we continue to climb the ladder, and I honestly believe, from 2022 to 2042 and that 20-year span, we've already gone to the playoffs twice, 2 years, 2 times out of the last 3-4 years. And I think the expectations now, are kind of like the Dodgers, like we need to be able to continue to have the standard. And if we hold ourselves to that high standard, eventually we will go to the World Series. So, we just can't be happy winning the AL West and be like, look at me, we made the playoffs. No, we want to go all the way. And you saw that from the Mariner fan base, not in like an arrogant, cocky way, but we knew that we were good enough to make it this year based off our roster and our talent. It's just about locking in. And a nice pass there. First down, Vikings. Move the chains. And TJ Hawkinson with the grab. Finally gets involved in the offense there. All right, 24-3 Chargers. Come on, Vikings, get in the end zone to make this game a little closer. You obviously are going to lose this game, but let's make it a little bit closer, a little bit more fun. Shotgun set. Wentz. And just a little flip forward. God, he's terrible. And that's definitely not a fumble, but I don't know why the Chargers are running it back and why the whistle isn't being blown. There's no way that's a touchdown. Incomplete pass. Yeah, and again, I had a goal of doing 155 out of 162 games, and I only missed like one game a month for WWE. But now WWE is getting greedy, wanting 30 a month. I'm not paying that to watch a PLE once a month. So, my goal moving forward is to do every Mariner game as possible. Trying to do every single one, including playoffs. So, and we did a hell of a lot of games, 160, 170 games, something like that total. So, again, it was a wild ride. And again, we definitely, got people to be aware of the Seattle Mariners this year. And I feel that every year moving forward, we're going to grow and grow more and more, which will be very exciting. There we go. 2nd and goal after the touchdown was overturned, and handoff up the middle, and Charger defense very stifling there. Minimal gain. 3rd down. Yeah, and again, it'll give an opportunity for our farm guys and our young guys to get a chance to play. We get Naylor signed, hopefully Polo signed. Let Caleb Ferguson, Gino, and Garver walk, and then just keep improving the team step by step. And eventually we will make the World Series. And we may not win it the first time that we go, but eventually we will get to a World Series and we will win. 3rd and goal, 24-3 Bolts. Shotgun set, 3 wide receiver set from Wentz. Throw to the sideline. And complete. Aaron Jones with a circus type of attempt, but wasn't able to come down with it. 4th and goal. But obviously, it was a lot of fun, doing what we did this year. We had a lot of growth. Ended up getting to 23,000 plus subs, 5.1 million views on the channel, and we're going to continue to keep grinding and getting those numbers to climb. 32-yard attempt. Reichard, kick is up, and good. 24-6 Bolts. Yeah, I like Colt a lot. Especially when you dedicate, so much time and energy, every pitch, every game, even the games, where we were getting blown out 10-0 in the 2nd inning, and, it just feels, like, I don't know, it's hard to describe, it's like it felt like it was in grasp. We had that game, we had all the momentum, and again, it shows you how important the bullpen is. The bullpen is going to lose you or win you more games than anything else. And, and again, sometimes great players fuck up. Bizzardo was the right choice in that situation. 1 bad pitch, and then 3 innings away, we would have won 3-1, and we would have made it against the Dodgers. We might have not won the World Series, but at least we could check that box off that, hey, we went finally, and no one can, say that we didn't, but who knows? Mariners go. Who's to say that they can't do the unthinkable and win it all? You never know. I mean, if you're in the championship game, you have a chance, So obviously Toronto is in, even though they might have even a less of a chance than us, but they're in it. So they're going to have a chance. We'll see, how they play against a rested Dodger team and if they can take advantage of that. Or, by going to Game 7, are they going to be gassed? And are the Dodgers just going to win the first 2 games in Toronto and then end up winning in a sweep or winning in 5, which probably could happen. So. Yeah, and especially, with Julio and Cal and, just seeing the progression of the Mariners, it feels like it's going to be a destination where players are going to want to come to get us over the hump, at some point or another. Or you're going to have a guy that wants to come back in Josh Naylor instead of a guy that is unhappy with the Mariners and wanting to leave, and it definitely feels like he loves it here, and hopefully we can get the job done without paying too much. So that way we can also have like Polo and, get a couple guys in the pen and whatnot, because obviously that's the biggest upgrade that we need is better guys in the pen. 4th and goal. Too many men on the field. Well, this is Kevin O'Connell for you. Appreciate you too, Reflect. It was like I said, it was a wild ride. I had to take 2 days off for my mentals, and I had like a hangover. Like I wasn't ready for the season to be over, and I couldn't even really reflect on my own emotions until like a day or two after. And I'm still kind of feeling it. And I know you guys are feeling it too, kind of feeling robbed a little bit, because we were shotgun set. Looking, and you hang on to the football for a billion seconds. Guess what? It's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Who holds on to the football longer than Wentz? Christ. Even Jameis would be able to get the football out of there. And let's see if that's on the defense and they can finally punch it into the end zone. Wow, legal defense. And that's going to be on automatic first down. We're finally going to get a Viking touchdown here in the third quarter. But don't get too cute, trying to do some kind of trick play. Otherwise, it might get intercepted. Again, just hand the ball off to Aaron Jones, get in the fucking end zone, and then eventually you can go to Hawkinson or Addison or Jay Jetta. You're on the 4-yard line. Pound the rock a few times, get in the end zone. Don't get cute here. But based on the formation, it looks like Wentz is going to throw, but we'll see here. Shotgun set. Nope. Yep. Play action fake. Back of the end zone. Touchdown. Vikings. There you go. Finally a good play call. And Jordan Addison with the tutty. Pretty risky to throw the football on the 4-yard line instead of just going to Aaron Jones, but they got the job done, thankfully. Yeah, I always look at that stat always with the run differential. Carson Wentz to Jordan Addison for a tutty. Extra point is up and good. And the thing is, it's like you may have not been the biggest baseball fan, but the thing is, moving forward, the standard is going to be what we saw this year. So again, I think we're going to have more amazing teams rather than disappointment teams that we had in the past. This roster is built different. So, it'll be something where, tuning into the Mariners every game, next season and beyond, or as many games as you can, I'll be doing every game pretty much here on the channel until my, forever. I'm going to be doing it, so. And again, it's going to be, some ups and some downs, some peaks and some valleys. But I feel very confident, where the organization is going and it's just a matter of time. And finally, we got a nice touchdown by Wentz to Addison on a kind of a risky play action play there. 24-10 Chargers. Now the Vikings need like a pick six or a fumble for a touchdown to get it to 24-17 to flip that momentum. And then we really have a ball game. Yeah. Baseball is great too because the season is so long. We go from the end of March, beginning of April, and then again, if you're good enough, you're playing all the way to almost the end of October. Time period. So, it's a great, time of year where sometimes people are waiting for football. We can do the baseball thing. And then even when football is, happening, we can still continue to do both. But I think there's going to be a lot of Mariner fans that might have been casuals or maybe not the biggest baseball fan that definitely are going to be more interested, going into next year and beyond. So 23-yard return, first down and 10 at the Charger 27. Handoff up the middle. And a short game. About 4 minutes to go, 24-10 Chargers. And obviously, if you're ahead in the second half, you run the football, bleed the clock out a little bit, but you still got to be able to throw for some first downs. And the Vikings are the number one blitzing team in the NFL, and it's burned them with Herbert today. But at some point, you would assume they're going to make a play on him. Little check down, incomplete. Pressure is too much for Herbert there. 3rd down and 8. And again, if they can force a 3 and out and then score pretty quickly, maybe before the third quarter ends or right at the beginning of the first couple minutes of the fourth, then we're definitely going to have a closer ball game here. Yeah, leaving runners in scoring position. Yeah, we definitely need better players. I agree with that as well. Shotgun set, blitz off the edge. Good pickup there. Herbert keeping his eyes downfield, jumping for the first down. First down, Keenan Allen. Move the chains. Yeah, well, not only Cal, Julio Rodriguez is fantastic. Hopefully he'll be good in the first half of the season next year, and he can put together a 40-40, type of season or something even more spectacular than that. Holding, defense, penalty is declined. But again, and we got a great pitching staff, great farm system. I mean, there's just so many things to be really thankful for and excited about moving forward. First down and 10. Herbert under center. Handoff up the middle. Nice blocking up front. Nice spin move. Look at that. Wow. It's like Natron Means out there. First down, Chargers. Nice run. Going back to the Harbaugh era, back when the Chargers made the Super Bowl and lost to the Niners. Great move there. I mean, if you're going to try to tackle up high, that ain't going to work. And you ended up making a spin move for him, and he kept those, feet going. Beautiful. Great power run there from Vidal. And that looks like a false start on the O-line. I mean, Julio definitely is capable of 40-40 season. 40 home runs, 40 stolen bags. I mean, especially if he can actually have a good April, May, June, and then follow it up after the All-Star break like he always does. I mean, he's been great every single season in the second half, and he's struggled every, first half of the season up to this point. So, and typically when you get into year 5, to year 9, that's usually where you're going to be in your prime, where you figured it out in most cases. I mean, especially if you play like 15, 20 years. And another big run. Wow! First down, Chargers. Man, he is beasting out there. Move the chains. Look at the blocking up front. Beautiful. A 21-yard run. Rodgers with the tackle. Especially with no Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, the draft pick. And another tough run. I mean, it's Harbaugh's offense. Run the football, and then when they cheat up, then you can go, to your wide receivers and your tight ends. And obviously you want to be able to play, great defense or as much defense as you can with the roster, individuals that you have at the moment. trying to build like a mini Michigan, but obviously the defense isn't going to be as good as Michigan's defense was for Harbaugh, and he knows that. 2nd down and 5 at the Minnesota 23 after Patterson's run there. And a short run up the middle. And Patterson not as explosive as Vidal, but I mean, when you're going with your 3rd and 4th string running backs, though, pretty good production. And I don't know why it still says 24-3, why it didn't refresh. It's 24-10. Let me refresh this. I just noticed that now. Third down and 4. Herbert taking off, using his legs. First down, Chargers. I mean, normally it updates on its own, but for whatever reason, it didn't update, so. And what did I say? I told you at the beginning of the game, Herbert would have to run for 50 yards or more to win this game, and he's at like 59 now, so looks like my ESP was on point there, especially with the Vikings being the #1 blitzing defense. You're going to have to run for your life. And, obviously extend plays, get some first downs with your legs, and then other times, act like you're going to run, and then at the last minute, dump it down. And Herbert's been able to do a little bit of everything. And that's the end of the 3rd quarter, 24-10 Chargers. Los Angeles. Gadsden with a touchdown early from Herbert, making it 7-0 in the 1st quarter. And then Vidal with a 3-yard rush, making it 14-0. So obviously up pretty early after Herbert had the pick 6, but then obviously that got overturned because the ball hit the ground. Reichert had a 54-yard field goal there in the 2nd quarter, making it 14-3. Lad McConkey with a great touchdown, 27-yard pass from Herbert, making it 21-3. And then in the 3rd quarter, it's been mostly Chargers. Obviously, Dicker, the kicker, 43-yard field goal was good, 24-3. And then we had Jordan Addison, obviously, as the Carson Wentz experiment has not really gone, to plan today, but at least he was able to get a penalty in the red zone. They were going for a field goal, ended up getting the automatic first down. And then obviously on the 4-yard line, instead of running it with, a running back that they haven't had in quite some time, they decide to go with the pass. Jordan Addison gets the ball and scores 24-10 with Reichert's extra point. So again, Minnesota down by 14. They need to hold the Chargers to a field goal here. And then again, they need to be able to score pretty quickly. And then they need their defense to be able to put up a score. And if they are able to do that, then we'll have ourselves a very close ball game, even though it feels like the Chargers are pretty much in control of this matchup. I don't think we're going to have a lockout. And shout out to my boy Brooks Beats with the best beats on YouTube. My boy. Rushing yards for Minnesota, 18. Los Angeles, 158. I mean, especially when you just got Aaron Jones back. What are you doing, Kevin O'Connell? Man in motion. Play action fake. Bootleg. Herbert steps up. Decides to keep it and sliding down. Good decision there by the former Oregon quarterback. Doesn't want to get blasted in the head. Nobody wants CTE in the NFL. 2nd down and 7 after that short scamper there by Justin Herbert. Cashman was the closest defender. 2nd down and 7 at the Minnesota 11. And a handoff, bouncing it to the outside. He's got an angle. Wow. And Vidal's like a bowling ball. He kind of reminds me of Maurice Jones-Drew. You know, kind of low to the ground. You know, pretty strong upper body. Likes to run you over. You know, and, you know, not the tallest guy, but very low to the ground. And, again, finding a way, you know, to be able to take that contact. 3-yard run. And then after that 3-yard run, a 10-yard run there from Vidal. 1st and goal in the Minnesota 2. Give him the ball again. Handoff. And that time the Vikings defense collapses with the big stop. 2nd and goal. (24-10) Bolts. 20 rushes for 95 yards and a tutty for Vidal. And again, you know, when you're going with your 3rd, 4th, 5th string running backs and you're able to have this kind of production, it really does show, you know, the impact of Joe Alt as well as, you know, some of these other individuals, you know, doing a good job. You know, even though Becton ended up getting injured earlier in the game, you know, when one guy returns, another guy gets hurt. But overall, the offensive line has done a great job for the Chargers, you know, winning that battle at the line of scrimmage, and it's not even close. And then Grenard there was injured during the play. Hopefully he's okay. Trainers are looking at Jonathan now. And we will be doing World Series game number 1 tomorrow, and more than likely every World Series matchup. And then once the World Series is over, then we'll have our full attention on the NFL, college football, and maybe even a little NBA or NHL mixed in, as we're patiently waiting for baseball to come back in 4 months. But at least we'll end up getting a few more games in. It would be a lot better if it was the Mariners and the Dodgers playing, but, you know. And I'll still keep tabs with Oregon and Wisconsin, and the Sunday night football matchup with the Packers and the Steelers, and the Monday night matchup with the Chiefs and the Commanders. We'll still be, you know, keeping tabs on those games as well. 2nd and goal at the Minnesota 2. And let's see if they end up going with a play action here or if they go to Vidal. And we got a flag on the play. Too many men on the field. How does that happen? Undisciplined. Second and goal, Herbert under center. QB sneak. Touchdown, Chargers, but there's a flag on the play. That might be false start on the O-line, getting a little too excited when Herbert was going to come in. Harbaugh's mad, screaming on the sideline, and it was false start. Barely a head nod. I mean, we're talking about barely movement. I mean, if they're going to call a penalty on a very small head nod, you know, compared to like the tush push when they got like 2 guys off sides, you know, when they end up running that for the Eagles. Herbert, play action bootleg, rolling to his right. Looking, floater. Touchdown, Chargers. Wow. An amazing job by Herbert, keeping his eyes downfield when everything is breaking down around him. And again, one great attribute for Justin Herbert. He's always looking to throw first, not run. He does have the ability to run. And Harris finding a way into the back of the end zone, wide open. And a great job going back to the quarterback's vision. And that was one of the easiest touchdowns there for Harris that he's probably ever going to have. Beautiful. Chief O'Chief in the building. What's good, brother? Extra point is up and good. What's good, Chief O'Chief, my boy? No Jaden Daniels versus the Commanders on Monday night, so huge advantage for you guys. Mike in the building. What's good? Yeah, just, grinding away, going from, doing all the Mariner coverage. We'll be doing World Series tomorrow, and, we'll figure out where we're going to go from there, with NFL and college football and other things. And, I hope that you're doing well as well, my guy. $31-10 Chargers. What's good, Chief? What's good, Mike? $12:42 left in the fourth quarter. 31-10 Chargers. Yeah, Wentz is terrible. Yeah, I really wanted to see Jaden Daniels as well, and sometimes it's, the sophomore slump, like CJ Stroud, where you just don't play well. And other times it's you get hurt, like Jaden Daniels. And again, the Commanders don't look anything like they did last year. Obviously with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, they took the league on storm and overachieved and, made the NFC Championship game. But obviously that's not going to happen this year in 2025. But I hope that Jaden can stay healthy and they can end up, playing better, while he's out on the field whenever that time, ends up coming for him. But, a lot of injuries, for a lot of teams at this point. Yes. I mean, I would assume that Mariota will try his best, but, I don't think really Kansas City will have too much to worry about in that game. That should be it's a little bit of a trap game for you guys, but it's a game that's definitely winnable. I think really the main concern for the Chiefs is the Broncos, in the division, and again, you may not win the division this year, but, if it comes down to the Chargers or the Chiefs, I think most people would still go with the Chiefs, making it over the Chargers. So, it kind of looks like it's going to be Broncos Chiefs making the playoffs this year for the AFC West. But again, we still got, half a season to go, and we don't know what kind of injuries may pop up at one point or another. So. I like watching Jaden Daniels play a lot too, so I was really hoping that he would go, but it's kind of like, the OG Mahomes and then the future in Daniels, but unfortunately we're going to have to, wait to see that whenever that may be again. Like, sub, donate, comment, share. If you haven't smashed that like button yet, please do. Help us get to 50 likes, 100 on that dono train, and 5 to 15 subs. Shotgun set on 1st down and 10. Wentz looking like an amateur out there. Check down to Hawkinson. And that's one of the more productive plays that we've seen from Minnesota. 1st down, Vikings. Move the chains. First down and 10 for Wentz. Play action. Wentz looking. Middle of the field is open. Intercepted. Big pick. Wow. Carson Wentz doing Carson Wentz things. Yeah, it's not only the Broncos defense you got to worry about. You got to worry about Bo Nix, proving to everyone that, hey, he can be like a Drew Brees with Sean Payton. And again, anyone that ended up watching that Denver game against the Giants in that fourth quarter, Bo is the real deal, and it's cool to be able to see some of these Oregon quarterbacks actually kind of make an impact on the league. With like Herbert and Bo specifically. We know Mariota is more of like a backup and whatnot, but Bo is the real deal, and again, if they actually get better running backs, better wide receivers, better tight ends, then they're even going to go to a whole nother level. I mean, their defense is top tier and Bo is improving, but it's not like they got all these amazing players at running back, tight end, and wide receiver. Cortland Sutton is pretty good, but realistically, Sutton would be a 2 on most teams, and some teams he would be a 1, and even on some teams he'd be a 3. So again, they're doing the best with what they have to work with, but again, they still need a lot more talent on that side for Bo. But once that offense catches up to the defense, it wouldn't shock me one bit if Denver ends up making an AFC championship game, or maybe one day down the road where they end up making a Super Bowl. So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of those players back in that era passed away for me. Vincent Jackson gone, Doug Martin gone, just way too many guys. Mike Williams, the wide receiver back then, gone. Like, I don't know, what was going on back then, to have so many people pass away in that little short time period, kind of in that Gerald McCoy era back in the day. But, we've had like 4 or 5 players pass away before they were 40, which is not ideal. Big interception there by Mickens. 16 yards down to the Charger 48. Yeah, well, anytime you play the, Chargers or the Broncos in the division, obviously, it's going to be a battle. And obviously, even though the Chargers have had injuries and the Chiefs also haven't really had the season that, maybe most people thought, you're still in the mix. Again, Buffalo has holes, Pittsburgh has holes. The Colts and the Jags are playing better than anyone anticipated. Broncos are showing that they're a top dog, but again, if the Chiefs make the playoffs, anything is possible. As long as you have Mahomes and Kelsey, Andy Reid, you still got Spags and Chris Jones. They may not be as good as they were in previous years, but again, even though the rest of the AFC teams have kind of caught up, injuries have been pretty impactful, just like they are every year. So we'll see, when it comes down to that playoff experience, that could be, one of the deciding factors, if the Chiefs make it to the AFC championship game this year or not. Man in motion, handoff up the middle. And I think at the beginning of the year, when they started off like 0-2, it felt like, oh, they're not going. This will be the year that they don't make it. But then after a few more weeks and them getting, some players back and, having some easier opponents and just kind of finding their way, it definitely feels at this point that, yeah, they're not as good as they used to be, but it wouldn't shock me if they end up making the AFC championship game again, just based off their experience. Now, obviously, there's quite a few teams that have gotten better this year, but we just don't know, how the Broncos, the Colts, the Jags, some of the Steelers, how would they play in the playoffs, against a team like Buffalo or Kansas City that has the experience, and again, there might be an upset or there might be, kind of the same thing happening, in a different year. First down, Chargers. Nice run there from Badal. Vidal. Vidal with a 13-yard gain to the Minnesota 37. Herbert, under center, hands off. Wow. He is a bowling ball, man. He never quits. You don't usually see guys, third, fourth string that have this kind of talent. Appreciate you, Chief will Chief. Every dollar counts, my guy. Thank you so much. $10 holla on the dono train. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, JT having a Saquon season, that's a big part of why they're doing so well. Defense is playing well. Obviously, Daniel Jones, has someone he can rely on. Everything kind of falling into place, for them. As well as, drafting Tyler Warren from Penn State. That was huge. Second down and 11, Herbert, hands off. And good defense there for Minnesota. And again, the number one thing I noticed with Minnesota, no Andrew Van Ginkel. And when he was on the team last year, he was making plays. It felt like every fucking play. And without him on the field, then defense is clearly not as good. They can blitz a lot, but depending on who you're playing, it's going to work half of the time against shitty teams. But when you play a good team like the Chargers, again, you're getting blown out here. So, blitzing the quarterback is great, but if you don't have a good secondary or linebackers to fill in the gaps, and if Herbert, runs away, then you're screwed. Because then, he's going to be able to rip you apart either with his legs, because he's actually pretty fast, or, going to Keenan Allen or Ladd McConkey, or today with Gadsden as well. But I'm definitely excited to see how the college football landscape pans out. It feels like it's open, even though Ohio State is, looking like the top dog like they were last year. Obviously, at the end of the year, they proved that. And obviously in the NFL, we got some new teams that are better than expected. Some teams that were good last year that are good this year. And obviously we have some teams that were great last year that aren't good this year based off injuries or other reasons like the Ravens and Lamar. But again, when you have injuries, hard to be able to keep up when you don't have Lamar Jackson. So, but it also didn't help Derrick Henry fucking fumbling the first, 2-3 games, late in games. You got to make sure your running back doesn't do that. And we got a 16-yard penalty there, face mask. And I hear Paisley. She's moaning outside of the door, so I'm going to let her in. She misses. Dad. Lay down. Lay down. Good girl. There you go. Play action fake. Herbert. Oh, it's 12 noon. You know what time it is? Time for a sack lunch. Yum, 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 yum. Now she's got her little area there behind me. Staring at daddy. Third down and 14 after that big sack lunch. And I'm liking the throwback unis, the supercharger uniforms. I mean, they don't really pop like the powder blues, but it reminds you of, Junior Seau, and again, they've kind of went away from this particular look. It's not like they wear this look every game. Hand off up the middle. Wow, nice stiff arm. Chargers are playing some physical football. Very Michigan-like with Harbaugh today. Shout out to Ronald, Reflect, Sarah, and Chief O'Chief on the Dono train. Appreciate you guys very much. Got about 7 minutes left here in the fourth quarter. Pure domination by the Chargers for the most part. But again, if you have J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz, I mean, not really ideal. Dicker the kicker. 34-yard attempt should be a gimme. Kick is up. And good. And it feels like every extra point or field goal lately isn't a gimme. You almost expect them to miss it at times. 34-10 Chargers. All right, Keenan Allen receiving yards today, 4 receptions for 44 yards. Gadsden's got 5 receptions for 77 and a tutty, and Lad McConkey's got 6 for 88 and a touchdown. So 4 for 44. Not sure if he's going to get that many more. You know, we got 7 minutes left, so he might be able to get 1 or 2 more before the game is over, potentially. They're definitely spreading it around pretty evenly today. And they got 198 yards on the ground compared to 18 for Minnesota. So, again, when you got Aaron Jones and you got Jordan Mason and you only have 18 yards total, no wonder you lost. 18 for 25, 227 yards, 3 TDs and 1 pick for Herbert. Carson Wentz, 14 for 23, 142 yards, 1 tutty and 1 pick. And he's been sacked, 5 times for a loss of 27? All right, Paisley's going to go lay down on the bed or the couch there. She says, Dad's got 7 more minutes. I'll wait for him. All right, we got about 7 minutes left. 34-10 Los Angeles. I feel, bad for guys like Jetta and Addison and Hawkinson. It's like you went from Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins to J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz. Golly. Broncos, 33 points in that fourth quarter after being shut out for the first 3 quarters versus the Giants. One of the best comebacks that I have ever seen. Brandon Graham getting out of retirement to join the Eagles because of injuries. Passing leaders, Stafford, Dak, Goff, Rodgers, and Mahomes, all 30 and over. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to be able to put up good numbers, period. Shotgun set, screen pass, Jetta. And, even having a guy that could be known as one of the best receivers normally. But again, if you have these type of quarterbacks, the value for players like that, you just got to hope that they can find a way to get in the end zone or make some big plays here and there. But, nobody really trusts J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz at this point. And it is kind of crazy that they're 3-3. Based on what we've seen today, it looks like a kind of a 1-5, 0-6 team. Jefferson, the intended receiver towards the sideline, incomplete. 3rd down and 8. Yeah, Wentz is hurt. There's no doubt about that. Shows you how important a backup quarterback is as well. Just like in baseball, having a good pen, to back up the starters, you got to have a good backup quarterback in the NFL. Wentz? Man, Wentz looks terrible out there. Hawkinson. And Wentz is on the ground on his back again. 4th down and 8. And obviously Wentz's decision-making, very suspect. But again, he is a backup, but, he's not one of the better backups in the league. I wouldn't want him on my team. Even as 3rd string, I wouldn't want him. Even Jameis Winston would be more effective than Carson Wentz at this point. Jameis might throw a pick 6 or fumble, but at least he'll get you some touchdowns. Wentz going for it on 4th down and throwing it right into the turf, nowhere near Jetta, and he's on his back again. Wentz going to go to the hospital. Yeah, we'll see if we end up getting any more points scored. I mean, it doesn't really look like Minnesota is going to score any, but it is possible the Chargers could get like one more field goal, or a touchdown, before this one is up. We got 6:19 to go. And I assume the way that Harbaugh typically operates, they're going to run the ball, and obviously get some first downs and bleed the clock that way. And, there'll be a few throws, either to Gadsden, Keenan Allen, or Ladd McConkey, or even Herbert with his legs. But we will see if we actually get points off of it or not. (34-10) Chargers. 6:19 to go here in the 4th quarter. And again, we've had most of the games that we've done on the channel have been close. I think this is the only second game that we've done that's been kind of a blowout. All the rest have been pretty electric, matchups. Like the Cowboy matchup at the beginning of the year. And, again, there's going to be certain games that end up in a tie or end up going into overtime and, end up being must-see TV or, coming down to the wire like the Buccaneers and the Texans earlier in the year. But thankfully, we've had some, good quality matchups. But again, normally on Sunday and Monday, those games are better than the Thursday night. But I did look ahead at the schedule, and it does get better as we get into December. So some of the matchups, obviously in October and November, are going to be a little hit or miss. But as it gets into December, some of the Thursday night games get a little bit better. But I'll still continue, to grind out Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night games. Obviously, we got the World Series starting tomorrow. So we'll do World Series. And then once that ends, then our full focus will be on the NFL, college football, and then maybe a little NHL or NBA sprinkled in, depending on who's playing. So. (34-10) Chargers. Justin Herbert dominating this game, as a lot of us thought that he would. Herbert, hands off up the middle, but really it's the running game. The offensive line has really won the game for the Chargers. When Joe Alt went out, they really weren't a very good team. They were, dropping games left and right after starting off the year, 2-0, 3-0. But then Mekhi Becton ended up getting an injury earlier today. So it's like one guy comes back and Joe Alt, which is great, but then you have another guy going out with Becton. But again, they haven't had Najee Harris. They don't have Amari and Hampton. They're on their 3rd, 4th, 5th string running backs, and they're playing like they're starters. So you got to give a lot of kudos to the O-line and the D-line of the Chargers. They have dominated this game, and that's why they're up 34-10. Ladd McConkey and Gadsden having great games as well as Vidal. Hand off up the middle on 2nd down and 8. I bet Jetta's, wishing that he had Sam Darnold or Kirk Cousins still at quarterback. Even though they may not be like top 5 guys in the NFL, you can't ever underestimate those guys. There's 32 teams, 32 quarterbacks. If you're a top 16 quarterback, that doesn't mean that you're not good. If you're like 11 through 16, I think those are the guys that get taken for granted, especially when they go to another team, and then you end up getting a quarterback that's much shittier, and then your life is hell. You don't get the ball, and you can't even really be a diva at the wide receiver position because you don't even get the opportunities to get the ball. Patterson with that 7-yard gain. 3rd down and 1 at the Minnesota 27. Even the 4th string running back is getting some looks here for Los Angeles. But Hawkinson, Addison, Jetta, Aaron Jones, it kind of feels like they don't want to be there. And again, the franchise is going backwards by drafting J.J. McCarthy. Handoff up the middle. I mean, imagine if Jackson Dart was on Minnesota right now. Like how much more fun Minnesota would be and how many more offensive, drives you would have with a guy like that. With the swagger and being able to have that connection. Jetta and Hawkinson and Addison, would feel like they just had Sam Darnold again, but a different type, of athleticism in Dart, even as a rookie. Second down and 9 at the Minnesota 23. Yeah, Dart is a stud. Same thing with Scottaboo. Great combo with those two young guys there, especially with Malik Neighbors. Even though he got hurt, that's going to be a great trifecta to pay attention to when no one gives a shit about the Giants, but now we will care. We'll go out of our way to see what's going on, with those 3 guys in the future, and hopefully Neighbors can stay healthy. But there's a few teams that Jackson Dart would have been a great fit for. The Saints, the Vikings, and a few others, but again, you have to have the right coach, the right personnel. And again, I feel like Kevin O'Connell has taken this team backwards, after going, 14-3 last year with Darnold, thinking that they were going to get someone better and J.J. McCarthy. Give me a break. 3rd down and 12, halfback toss. And Patterson gets drilled after a gain of a couple. And field goal unit coming in to see if we can get Avery the over, so Avery can win the bet. But we'll see if the kick will be good. Some of the kicks today have been a little wide, so. All right, 2-minute warning after the play clock rolls down, and it's 4th down and 13, and we'll get probably the last chance for points, obviously today for the Chargers, and I don't know if you're going to get anything out of Minnesota. No, JJ's still injured. If JJ was healthy, they would go with JJ. There's no question you're not going to go Wentz over JJ unless, JJ is hurt. And so, even a shitty J.J. McCarthy is better than Wentz in any day, in any situation. I mean, Wentz isn't even good enough to be on the roster. I wouldn't even want Wentz as 3rd string. What's the point? I would rather go with another rookie or another vet. Giants and Eagles going at it. Cowboys and Broncos. That'll be intriguing. Dak and Bo going at it. Packers and Steelers. Rodgers going against his former team. Obviously, he'll have something to prove there for Pittsburgh. And then you got the Commanders versus the Chiefs, but no Jaden Daniels, which would be obviously must-see TV if Daniels was there, even though they're not really having the same type of year with Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels this year. Obviously, Mariota is there. And, Mariota is a, capable backup to get you a little, but I highly doubt that they'll be able to compete with the Chiefs for 4 quarters. It's definitely a trap game for Kansas City, but you would assume that they'll have enough to get the dub, and they might even blow them out. So. All right, Dicker the kicker lining up. Let's see if we can get Avery a win. Yeah, the 3rd string would be better than what you're getting here. At least get some experience. 45-yard attempt by Dicker. Kick is up, and it is good. There you go, Avery. 37-10. And after watching this Minnesota team, how the hell are they 3-3? They look like a 1-5 or 0-6 team. You got yourselves a logjam in the AFC West and the NFC West. Broncos 5-2. Chargers about to improve to 5-3. And then if the Chiefs win against the Commanders, they'll be 5-3. And if the Broncos beat the Cowboys, they'll improve to 6-2. They drop that game, they're 5-3. So it's definitely very exciting in the AFC West and the NFC West with the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners all with similar records as well. It's the only two divisions that got three that are competing for probably 2 spots. And then every other division is only 1 or maybe 2. All right, you got the Bills, you got the Steelers, you got the Colts and the Jags, even though the Jags are kind of hit or miss lately, right? And then obviously in the NFC, you got the Lions and the Packers, right? You got the Eagles, and then you got the Buccaneers. And then we'll see if the Panthers and the Falcons can, get good enough to actually threaten Tampa, even with all their injuries. They still feel like they're the top dog trying to win the NFC South again. All right, Brosmer's coming in, thank God. Yeah, Anthony Edwards is one of the best NBA players, so, at least you got that. I saw that firsthand. Blazers dominated the first 3 quarters, and then Anthony Edwards took over in the last 5 minutes, and then they ended up losing. Not only the game, but obviously with Chauncey Billups this morning as well. Brosmer, little check down. And after just seeing one throw, that's a billion times better than what you get out of Wentz. And obviously on top of that, Wentz was already kind of hurt a little bit. They should have went with Brosmer to start the game. Still would have lost probably by a similar score, but at least you get the guy that can actually get the ball to the receivers and the tight ends, it looks like. And the offsides there by the Chargers. Definitely going backwards without Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold, and that's why you can't take for granted what you have, Minnesota's got the Lions, Ravens, Bears, Packers. Oh my, you might lose all of those. Especially if Lamar comes back, and you're probably not going to win that game. Encroachment, 1st down and 10 here for Brosmer. Let's see if Brosmer can get Jetta or Hawkinson or Addison out of, football hell here. Obviously not being able to get the ball from J.J. McCarthy or Carson Wentz normally. And pass incomplete. Adam Thielen, the old school vet in the game, dropping a pass. What happened to my hands? Nice. Hell yeah. I love that for Colt. And I think Colt has a chance to be better than Ben or Cole or anyone else that kind of came up for us in the farm. Like, he looked like the best guy out of them all. Obviously, Lazaro Montez will be interesting when he's ready to come up. And then obviously Cade and Durangelo as pitchers. Handoff, bouncing it to the outside, and a gang tackle by 3-4 Charger players there. 3rd down and 4. And less than a minute 30 to go. Wow, 23rd. 3 spots higher than Savage, who's pitching tomorrow. Wow, crazy. And we will be doing World Series Game 1 on the channel. Toronto Blue Jays and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Or I should say Los Angeles Dodgers versus the Toronto Blue Jays in Toronto. 3rd down and 4 at the Charger 49. Come on, baby. Move the ball a little with the 3rd string quarterback. Little check down. And Brosmer, even in this little small sample, looks a billion times better than Wentz. Even if it's just little check downs and little slants, hitches, check down, just basic football, but Brosner to Scott there. Owen with the tackle. Montez ranked 29th. First down and 10, shotgun set for Brosmer. Looking, little check down again. And at least like Minnesota players are actually touching the football. You know, when Wentz is out there, that doesn't really happen. And it's like you already got some really good skill position players. And, you know, Aaron Jones is back. You got Justin Jefferson. You got Jordan Addison. You got TJ Hawkinson. But with an incapable quarterback like Wentz, I mean, those guys are pointless. You know, you're not going to be able to get them the ball, especially if the O-line isn't doing their job either. There you go. There's a decent run. First down, Vikings. And that might be the last play of the game. Well, Chargers aren't getting the ball back. The game is essentially over here. I like those rankings, Reflect. And that is it. Final score, Chargers 37, Vikings 10. I wish this game was a little bit closer. It's only the second blowout that we've done on the channel. So at least most of the games have been pretty fun and close. This one was obviously not close at all, but I do appreciate everyone coming through and showing some love. Shout out to Ronald, Reflect, Sarah, and Chief Will Chief with some dono love as well. If you haven't hit the like button yet, please do on your way out. And then I will be live for the World Series. So we'll be doing Game 1, Dodgers and Blue Jays at 5 o'clock Pacific tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to that. So hope you guys end up having a great rest of your evening. And I got one question for you. Who you know talks sports like us? Your boy Ryan, Northwest Sports Fanatics. Final score, Chargers 37, Vikings 10. The Chargers improved to 5-3. The Vikings dropped to 3-4. Love you guys, and I appreciate you guys very much. And I will be live tomorrow for World Series Game 1 between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays. Can't wait to see you guys, and I appreciate y'all, and I am out. Gang.